I'm going to call to order this meeting of the Bloomington City Council on Wednesday, July 22nd. The agendas are printed out on the clerk's desk, and there are some posted on the doors. We have a fairly straightforward meeting today. First, we'll have some minutes for approval, I believe, and then reports. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm even reading it right here. The first thing that will happen will be a roll call. And so in which case, will Clerk Bolden please call roll?
It's fine. Councilmember Flaherty?
Here.
Stossberg? Here. Piedmont Smith? Here. Zulik? Asari?
Here.
Daly?
Here.
Rollo?
Here.
Ruff? Rosenbarger?
Here.
Thank you.
All right, so back to the agenda summation. Then we have one piece of legislation for first reading and 3 pieces of legislation for second reading. There will be 2 times of public comment. All right, so with that, let's go. If there are any minutes for approval, do we have any? I don't think we did, right? Okay, we don't have any minutes for approval, so moving swiftly along. Council members, any reports? Please, Councilmember Stossberg.
I'll just go ahead and say welcome back to our first meeting after recess. I spent my recess traveling to a few different places, and it's one of those interesting things when you get out of Bloomington. Now I look at lots of elements and pieces of the places where I was, and sometimes that makes me go, wow, look at all the things Bloomington has, and sometimes it makes me go, oh, look at all the things Bloomington doesn't have. But I mostly wanted to take a minute to celebrate some of the things that we have in terms of our infrastructure. One of the places that I went to was Belize, and it was very, very interesting. But there was also transportation infrastructure was not the same, and it was really interesting. The elements that I thought to myself, oh, it would be, like we have a lot better infrastructure in some of these ways in terms of our transportation infrastructure. And then in other ways, they had some sleeping policemen. If you've ever been to Belize, maybe you've heard about the sleeping policemen. They are speed bumps in the middle of 50-mile-an-hour roads. And you learn to expect them, you learn where they are, and everybody just goes with it. And it is one of those interesting pieces of infrastructure that we want to, I hear lots of complaints about speed bumps, but it is definitely a tool that slows you down on Belizean highways when you are approaching a bus stop in the middle of a 50-mile-an-hour road. And it can really be utilized as a tool, and people just get used to it. And so that's something that I want to kind of put out there is this general, like things change and things are different, and there are many different ways to proceed and do things well. And people are very, very adaptable, and success can look like a lot of different things. So that's my takeaway from my nice, relaxing summer traveling. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Any other comments? Councilmember Piedmont Smith.
Yes, on a slightly less positive note, I did want to express my dismay that the land swap seems to have not occurred that we were supporting for the College Square site that the RDC owns and the Seminary Point site that the CIB owns, with different dates for requests for proposals by the 2 bodies. They seem to be going forward in different directions and further away from any possibility of swapping land, which is unfortunate. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you for bringing that up. Any other comments or reports? I'd like to make just 2 brief ones. The first is in terms of things to be dismayed by. Many of you may be familiar with the Bloomingtonian, which is a local news organization that recently had its page taken down by Facebook without any sort of process. It was taken down by an AI bot. I'm particularly concerned about this, something I've often spoken about, but local media of any sort matters a lot, and we live, luckily we have people who have dedicated, I think, at a lot of cost of sweat and tears and often financial to themselves, a lot of time to this community and making sure that we stay informed. Obviously, people like the B Square Bulletin and the Bloomingtonian, I think, are pillars of how we stay informed as a community. And so I was obviously dismayed that happened. Very happy, though, that luckily Facebook seems to have responded now and reinstated their account, but it's still at a state where they're not monetized now as an account. And so if any of you feel so compelled, it would be wonderful if you can support the Bloomingtonian, if you care about that type of journalism that's happening in the community. The second thing, I think similarly, not a particularly happy thing to speak about, but there were recent reports of a potential hate crime that happened at People's Market at their greenhouse just 2 days ago, or just yesterday, I'm sorry, where I don't want to go into all of the details, but the simple fact of the matter is that somebody was attacked based on their identity. And this is something that I think too often we like to act like does not happen in a place like Bloomington. And we like to say, well, we're Bloomington. If any of you ever watched the film about Matthew Shepard, one of the common threads that happened in that film was that people in Laramie, Wyoming would say, well, this is Laramie. This type of thing doesn't happen here. We're a very liberal community, I went to high school in Laramie, Wyoming, so I remember this kind of vividly. But here in Bloomington, we have that same type of approach a lot of the times when we talk about equity, when we talk about what it really means to be a resident in this town. It's too often that we think that we can rest on our liberal, sort of laurels and forget the fact that the very reason why we still have work to do is that if anyone is oppressed, then we all are. If anybody is under threat, then we all are. And so I just would like to very clearly say that we're against all forms of violence, and that this type of violence needs to be addressed the right way. Through economic means, it needs to be addressed very clearly with policy. And also, again, if anybody is so inclined, the People's Market would love your investment. And so if you're able to invest in some way, shape, or form in making this community safer, more accepting, it's just the sort of general call and plea. So again, thank you all for all the work you do. Welcome back. I'm very excited for this portion of our term. Let us move on then. We have reports from the mayor now, in which there'll be a presentation of the 2026 Human Rights Award. Who is doing said presentation? There is no wrong side here.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. So good evening. My name is Emma Williams, and I serve as the chair of the Bloomington and Monroe County Human Rights Commission. It's truly an honor to be here tonight, not only in my role as chair, but as a member of this community that continues to show up for one another in really meaningful ways. On behalf of the commission, it's my honor to welcome and present this year's Human Rights Awards. The commission exists to promote fairness, dignity, and equal opportunity in our community, and tonight we're going to recognize the people and organizations who bring those values to life in really meaningful ways. The Human Rights Award was established in 1997, and it honors individuals and groups who have made significant contributions to civil rights, human relations, and community here in Bloomington and Monroe County. Each year, the nominees remind us that progress is built day by day through the commitment, care, and courage of the people in this community. It's a privilege to recognize two recipients this evening whose work reflects exactly that. First, the 2026 Individual Human Rights Award is presented to Melanie Davis. Mel's work Mel's work has been rooted in advocacy, education, and a deep commitment to service. As her nominator shared, she's dedicated her life to expanding opportunities for members of the LGBTQ+ community to grow, thrive, and find safety, and build meaningful connections amongst our community. Her impact can be seen across many spaces, from her work with Protect Our People, helping to ensure access to resources for the transgender community, to her involvement with B-Town PFLAG and her voice on WFHB's Blooming Out radio program. Most recently, Mel became the founding president of the Front Door LGBTIQ Center, which is working to create a safe, sober, and family-friendly space for the LGBTIQ community here in Bloomington. Through all her work, Mel has helped make Bloomington and Monroe County a more welcoming, inclusive, and compassionate place for everyone. Her efforts remind us what it is and what it means to build community with intention and care. Congratulations, Mel. Next, the 2026 Organizational Human Rights Award is presented to Mother Hubbard's Cupboard. Mother Hubbard's Cupboard works every day to increase access to nutritious food in ways that cultivates dignity, agency, and community. Through their food pantry, garden, and educational programs, they create a space where people are treated with respect and where community is actively built. One nominator spoke about their personal experience receiving resources, and they shared a simple but powerful truth. Access to food changes lives. At its core, this work reflects the understanding that having enough to eat is not a privilege, it's a basic human right. Mother Hubbard's Cupboard embodies that principle in action, ensuring that members of our community are supported in meeting immediate needs, and they do so with dignity and empowerment. So join me once again to congratulate Mother Hubbard's Cupboard. Tonight's honorees remind us that human rights work can take the shape of many forms: advocacy, education, service, and care, but at its core, it's about recognizing the inherent worth of every single person. We're grateful for their contributions and for the example they set for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Fantastic. And we'll now move for any reports from council committees. Are there any? All right. Moving on, and congratulations again. Moving on to the first best part of the meeting, which is time for public comment. Rules are as they usually are. You have 3 minutes. Please remember to sign in, state your name or alias for the record, if you will. People online, will start with people in the room, and then if you are online, you can raise your hand, and we'll acknowledge you for public comment. We'll start in the room, and I see Commissioner Madeira here, so take it away.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to address the council on a matter of mutual interest to the county and the city. So at a recent commissioner meeting, we identified time and space as key factors of importance in selecting a jail location. So time, we must proceed as quickly as possible with the construction of a jail facility, and unnecessary delays are not acceptable. In space, we need to find buildable acres sufficient to build a jail facility. Co-location was strongly preferred, and space for adequate external circulation. And there should be materials that are being distributed to, so that I will not need to elaborate at great length on these. So the county considered the Hopewell property in 2022-23, although at the time we had a design that was limited to only a jail. This was understandably problematic for the sheriff. We approached the city council at that time and requested consideration for the use of that part of the Hopewell property for a jail facility. The council declined to support the request at that time. We recently reviewed our scoring matrix from years ago, and Hopewell came up as a preferred site. At this time, I'd like to turn the podium over to my colleague, Commissioner President Julie Thomas.
Hello, everyone. Thank you. So our architect experts at DLZ designed a combined justice facility. You'll see it on the paper that was handed to you. Because the city has expressed an interest in assisting us, we are returning now to repeat our request for consideration. It is close to downtown and Centerstone as well. There is an important caveat, however. We cannot utilize this site if it will require a full plan commission and city council review, because that would mean an additional minimum of 9 months of time that we really do not have. So we do ask for your support for this request to go before the city's redevelopment commission. And if you support this, we'd also ask for copies of the geotechnical studies of the property. And we do ask and request that you respond to our question as soon as you possibly can. We would be open to considering purchase of the property or potentially to develop a land swap for the Thompson property, which is considerably more acreage. But we obviously would need our council approval on that. So please contact us via email if you have questions, or to let us know, hopefully, that you support this plea. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. That was an efficient 6 minutes. That was great. Okay, are there any other comments in the room? Mr. MG.
Hey, good evening, Council. Happy Towny Summer. This is Christopher MG from the Greater Bloomington Chamber of Commerce, fresh from the Sherwood Oaks 50th anniversary, from the Euro Award-winning Parks Department, a jewel in the city. I want to recognize the city's comprehensive audit of the development review and permitting services conducted by American Structure Point, plus welcome longtime chamber friend of and friend of the community, Mr. Lynn Cohen, his new leadership role at the Planning Department at an important juncture. For several years, the chamber has heard concerns from our members about Bloomington's review and permitting process. Those concerns were never about avoiding rules. People wanted to understand what was expected of them, a straight answer based on the code, and have some sense of how long these things were actually going to last. The audit confirms those experiences are real. It found excessive review time, poor coordination among departments, conflicting comments, and inconsistent interpretations of that code. Perhaps most telling, it found culture of mistrust, with stakeholders describing reviewers as gatekeepers rather than collaborators. That finding about culture is one that I would ask the council to just sit on for a little bit. The report recommends helping applicants find a path to yes, not by overlooking the code, but explaining the requirements clearly and helping compliant projects move forward. The audit also provides useful perspective on staffing, which we've heard from this chamber. Bloomington appears appropriately staffed. The larger opportunity is not simply adding positions, it's improving coordinations, accountability, project ownership, and consistency. For our members, these problems are especially visible in adaptive reuse. A small business owner may see an older storefront and see an opportunity, but once the process begins, that modest improvements can trigger substantial architectural, engineering, accessibility, and construction costs. Consider the proposed emergency vet clinic on West 2nd Street. Reusing that building produced roughly $130,000 to $150,000 for the exterior site alone. So that's parking, sidewalks, ADA ramps, landscaping. That doesn't include the interior work or specialized equipment needed in that veterinarian hospital. For a larger developer, those costs are manageable. For a small business, six-figure costs can be the death knell for a project, leaving a needed service unrealized and the existing property vacant. We are grateful for the City Commission this audit and made it public, but a report alone will not change anyone's experience. Implementation will be the real measure of success. We welcome Len Cohen's leadership and see an opportunity to build clear, more collaborative system, one that protects Bloomington standards while giving residents and businesses confidence they can navigate this process. I thank you for your time tonight, and I'm just under.
Thank you. We'll go online, and then I see Mr. Rousseau here, but is there anybody online with a comment? All right, we'll come back to chambers. Mr. Rousseau.
Good evening. I'll be very short. I look forward to the conversation that is about to take place with the Bloomington Housing Authority, and I hope you ask a lot of probing questions because I'm confused. I haven't had time to pore over the documents. I would like to know, is city money being used to
Mr. Russo, just the rules of the House say that you can't comment during this period about a thing that's already on the agenda. So
right, you are.
Yes.
I've completely forgotten. Please ask a lot of questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Next in chamber, please.
Hello, hi, I'm Megan Betts. I'm here with Mother Hubbard's Cupboard, and I'm so thankful to have extra motivation to be here tonight. But while I was here, didn't want to pass up on an opportunity to just share a couple of summer invitations that we have over at Mother Hubbard's Cupboard. So I'm just going to run through some upcoming program. As a reminder, every Tuesday from 4:30 to 5:30, we have Kids Garden, which is a drop-in opportunity to bring the kids out, all ages. Older kiddos get an opportunity to lead younger kids in the garden. They'll tend the space. They'll work on their observation skills. They'll connect with the space. And over time, we really see kids take it on as a space that they have ownership of. So drop into Kids Garden. You don't have to be there for the whole time. Just come as it works. Wednesday, 4:30 to 5:30, we have Kids Cook. So again, kids of all ages can drop into an opportunity to try out a recipe. We try to keep those seasonal, so things that are in the garden will make their way into the kitchen, and things that are in the pantry will also make their way into those recipes, so that the pantry feels like a more exciting place for families to shop from and have some ideas to take home. Those are open to everyone, no registration required, but we do have a couple of free workshops each month on Tuesday and Thursday evenings. If you or anybody in your community are interested in learning about fermentation or sourdough baking, making your own homemade tortillas, then I encourage you to check out our education page on our website and join in sharing and building your kitchen skills. And then we also have garden work days. We've been monitoring, excessive heat and air quality, but when it works out, from 4 to 6 on Thursday, we are in the garden together. And the last Thursday of the month, those become dig and dine. So we spend some time in the garden and then also share a meal together. So I encourage all of you to drop in, spend some time together, be out in the garden while things are feeling really abundant, and just join in everything that we're up to. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Anybody else would like to make comments in chamber? All right. Anybody online? We'll move along then. Are there any appointments to boards and commissions? Seeing none, we will move along to legislation for first readings. Any motions?
I move that ordinance 2026-15 be introduced and read by the clerk by title and synopsis only.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Flaherty?
Yes.
Strasburg?
Yes.
Piedmont Smith?
Yes.
Asari?
Yes.
Daly?
Yes.
Rallo?
Yes.
Ruff?
Yes.
Rosenbarger?
Yes.
Thank you. Will the clerk please read?
Ordinance 2026-15, amending Title II of the Bloomington Municipal Code regarding establishment of the Fire Merit Commission. Council sponsor is Councilmember Zulik. The synopsis is as follows. This ordinance amends Title II of the Bloomington Municipal Code to delineate the duties between the Bloomington Board of Public Safety and the City of Bloomington Fire Merit Commission, and to create a new chapter which identifies the existence of the statutorily created City of Bloomington Fire Merit Commission.
Thank you very much.
I move for council to discuss legislation.
Second.
All right. Remind me, we need to vote on that too. Okay, we need to vote on that. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Strasburg?
Yes.
Piedmont Smith?
Yes.
Asari?
Yes.
Daly?
Yes.
Rallo?
Yes.
Ruff?
Yes.
Rosenbarger?
Yes.
And Flaherty?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Is there somebody here to present on that? Are you here to present on it? Okay, no. No. Attorney Allen, was Councilmember Zulik supposed to present on this matter?
I would have expected the city legal department. I don't know if there's someone online who would like to present. I can give a brief synopsis of the changes if you would all like, since there appears to be
Is there somebody
nobody.
online? And if not, yes, absolutely, we'll go to you, sir. There's no one online? Interesting. Okay, well then, please take it away, Attorney Allen.
Wonderful. This ordinance essentially it updates Title II as it said, as we heard by the title. So state code was changed a few years ago to add in merit board systems as a default for police and fire. The city of Bloomington had a split decision on the merit boards. The police department decided not to adopt the merit board, as part of and to continue with the Board of Public Safety as its oversight body. They affirmatively did that as provided by state law. However, the fire department did go with the merit system. In accordance, the Board of Public Safety no longer has that oversight over the fire department. It should be the new merit board system. So what this ordinance essentially does is it updates existing language in Title II to make it clear that the Board of Public Safety no longer has that oversight role over the fire department, and then it adds language to add that merit board consideration in accordance with Indiana law and as the city decided for the merit board system for the fire department.
So, thank you very much. Any questions or discussion? All right, seeing none, we'll go to public comment.
Hi there, my name is Wes Martin. I'm the president of Local 586 Political Action Committee. We are the local firefighters union, and I'm here to speak in support of the ordinance and just say that this is a system that we are excited to be a part of. I understand that the police did not want to go ahead with this, but it's something that our membership looks forward to, and it's nice to have kind of additional oversight over both promotions and disciplinary action within our department and to have some union buy-in in that process. So again, Local 586 and our local firefighters union recommend passage of this ordinance. I know this is first reading, but yeah, that's our position.
Thank you very much. Are there any other commenters in the chamber? All right, moving online. Is there anybody online who'd like to comment? Okay, well, back to council. Any comments or questions or motions? Councilmember Strasburg.
I'll just say that I'm supportive of this change, reminding hopefully not necessarily my colleagues, but the public that we discussed this probably about a year ago at this point when it was first established, and it feels just kind of like an oversight at the time that it didn't get worked into code. I'm delighted to hear that the fire department union supports this change because that says to me that it's been working well for the last year. So yeah, I don't have any questions, and I guess I'll move that we move it to second reading at our meeting next week, right?
Next week.
Next week.
Second.
Okay. All right. There's a motion and a second to move this to our July 29th meeting. Can the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Piedmont Smith.
Yes.
Asari?
Yes.
Daley?
Yes.
Rallo?
Yes.
Ruff?
Yes.
Rosenbarger?
Yes.
Flaherty? I'm sorry, I missed it.
We didn't hear
Yes.
you, Councilmember Flaherty. There we go. There we go.
Strasburg?
Yes.
All right.
All right, so that'll be on the agenda for next week. We're now moved to second readings and resolutions. I'll just make a quick procedural note here. If you'll note, we hadn't put item A on the agenda originally, namely because right before winter break, we had a lot of feedback that I continued to receive throughout the time. We did not have time within the window to action all of that, and so I'm asking that we don't introduce this and postpone it. But of course, that's to you all to decide. But all right, so if there's any motions, 2026-12.
I forgot my words. I move that ordinance 2026-12 be introduced and read by the clerk by title and synopsis only? Or
That's what you want to do?
or not?
If that's what you
We can
want.
say no. Okay,
Can you postpone it?
so I move that we
I mean, that was
postpone. No?
So
there's no second.
There was no second, so.
I know, I would like to hear from Attorney Allen how we should do this.
So if there's no second, then
Then
it doesn't get introduced.
falls.
But, so potentially it just fails to be considered at this meeting. However, I mean, the cleaner way is potentially to go ahead and read this on the agenda and move to, my understanding from Councilmember Asari, of course, I don't want to say anything different, President Asari, but if you wanted to reintroduce a new resolution, the way to do this is to table this particular version of the resolution so that it could only be brought back up by a majority vote of council, but it wouldn't be necessarily postponed to a different time at this point.
That actually is a better idea, so we don't have to do lots of amendments. So, yes.
Do we, in order to do that, do we need to introduce it so we can discuss it, so we can have that motion?
Yeah, I believe you do.
Okay, that's what I thought.
So would you like to make the motion again?
I made it. I move that ordinance 2026-12 be introduced and read by the clerk by title and synopsis only.
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Asari?
Yes.
Daley?
Yes.
Rallo?
Yes.
Ruff?
Yes.
Rosenbarger?
Yes.
Flaherty?
Yes.
Strasburg?
Yes.
Piedmont Smith?
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. Will the clerk please read?
Resolution 2026-12, establishing rules and guidelines for alcohol permit districts. The synopsis is as follows. Resolution 2026-12 establishes rules, procedures, and public interest guidelines for alcoholic beverage permits for which the City of Bloomington has authority, discretion, or influence to recommend, support, condition, object to, monitor, or otherwise participate in the alcohol beverage permitting process.
I move that ordinance 2026-12 be adopted.
Second.
All right, will the clerk please call the roll? Oh, we don't need to, sorry. Move that we withdraw, or should we vote for it? What do you
As
say?
I think
Somebody has
that
to move to table.
somebody has to move to table.
And it can't be me.
And I'll go ahead and move Resolution 2026-12 be tabled indefinitely.
I second.
Thank you very much. Motion and a second. Will the clerk please call the roll? Unless, is there any discussion? All right, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Daley?
Yes.
Rallo?
Yes.
Ruff? Yes. Rosenbarger?
Yes.
Flaherty?
Yes.
Strasburg?
Yes.
Piedmont Smith?
Yes.
Asari?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Any other motions?
I move that Resolution 2026-13 be read by title and synopsis only.
Second.
Motion and a second. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Yes. Councilmember Rallo?
Yes.
Ruff?
Yes.
Rosenbarger?
Yes.
Flaherty?
Yes.
Strasburg?
Yes.
Piedmont Smith?
Yes.
Asari?
Yes.
Daley?
Yes.
Now, will the clerk please read?
Resolution 2026-13, authorizing issuance of bonds for the BHA For the BHA, the council sponsor is Councilmember Zulik. The synopsis is as follows. Resolution 2026-13 authorizes the Bloomington Housing Authority, or BHA, to issue up to $100 million in bonds to acquire 5 properties from Hometown Group. The properties include 924 units of affordable housing for rent at or below 100% of the area median income. The bonds will be issued at an interest rate not to exceed 9% and a term to maturity of 45 years. This bond issuance is not an obligation of the City of Bloomington and does not count against the city's bond limit. The bonds are to be repaid from revenue from the acquired properties and any surplus revenue of the BHA.
Thank you.
I move that Resolution 2026-13 be adopted.
Second.
All right. Do we have someone here to present? I assume that, Nate, you're okay, fantastic. Take it away.
Good evening. My name is Nathan Ferrer. I'm the Executive Director of the Bloomington Housing Authority. Thank you for having us tonight. We've got a great opportunity ahead of us and hoping to answer your questions about that. With me is Chris Cashman from Ice Miller. They are representing BHA as bond attorneys, and we did send a presentation. Great. So Chris is going to start us off.
Thank you. Good evening, and thanks for including us on the agenda this evening. We can wait for the presentation to be loaded. Also, even though we've prepared a presentation, really, feel free to hop in with questions anytime, because we'd like to address your questions more so than kind of force feed you this presentation. But we can go to the first slide, which is kind of an overview of the bonds initially, and then we'll dive in a little bit deeper after you hear more about the project. But the authorities put together a nice working group. So Ice Miller, our public finance team, will serve as bond counsel on the transaction. The authorities hired a financial advisor, and Colliers will serve as the underwriter on this proposed project, should you vote to move the resolution forward. I think it's important to note, and we'll say it a few times just to drive the point home, that the bonds would be secured by the revenues of the project and other surplus funds of the BHA. It will not be an obligation of the city. Right now, the authority is working diligently to obtain a bond rating, which will help market the bonds, and the bonds will be kind of offered on a limited public basis with an offering document. So unlike maybe prior housing bonds that you've seen in the past, these bonds would be issued under the local housing authority statute. And just to put the context as to why we're here, before you with the resolution, that statute requires the fiscal body of the unit to approve the project. So a little bit different than perhaps you may be used to seeing with other housing projects. Let me go to the next slide and talk about the properties if you're ready. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Director. Thank you. Sorry, I covered up your notes.
That's right. Okay. So the Hometown Group properties consist of 5 apartment complexes around town. Those are highlighted in the map: Woodland Springs, Basswood, North Crest, Kingston Manor, and Summit Point, totaling 924 units. If you'll skip to the next one, you'll see that these average rents, if you're familiar with what the rents are right now, these are definitely in the more affordable range. There's a little more detail. If you've heard anything about these properties, you may know that at least a couple of them are fairly well run down. There's regular complaint calls about the quality and how they're managed to hand and to the police department. We are excited about this project for a number of reasons. First and foremost, preservation of workforce housing, of naturally occurring affordable rents is our primary goal here. We will put in, you can skip to the next one. This will include $9 million in CapEx for immediate repairs. Those will focus on code violations, resurfacing interiors, roof and exterior replacement at a couple of the properties, and additional repairs as needed to get them up to our standard. These apartments will utilize AMIs that are consistent with workforce housing. I didn't catch the whole description, but I want to clarify that that 100% AMI was an average. That's what we're shooting for. We are usually in the business of creating affordable housing, and this is workforce housing. So this is about preservation. I would say the next primary reason we want to do this is to create a pipeline for future LIHTC, low-income housing tax credit deals, or other deals that might use HUD tools as they become available to create deeper affordability, much more like our RAD properties at Crestmont and Walnut Woods. And lastly, why this is really critical for us is our revenue from HUD has become less dependable. We have faced cuts in the form of no inflationary increase this year and a freeze on issuing any new vouchers. So that means when a voucher gets retired, somebody doesn't need it anymore, we are not issuing new ones since last July. So we're stuck in a pretty difficult financial spot. We estimate that bringing on these properties post-construction will generate about $1 million of revenue per year. And in the next 5 to 10 years, we would put hopefully at least one of these in 5 years through a LIHTC or a RAD-like conversion so that we can create deeper affordability. Yeah, I think that covers all my points. Next slide, please. I'm going to leave this one to the bond lawyer.
Thank you, Attorney Allen. So I think half of my colleagues think visuals like this are helpful, and I'm in the bucket that think these are a little bit of a head scratcher. So to me, this is meant to be kind of a flow of funds and how the project is going to be or would be financed, which is to show that we have our bond underwriter in the middle, and they're going to go out and market the bonds and sell them to a bond investor. Those purchase proceeds will flow to the project. You know, about 8 or 9 million will be used for capital expenditures. There'll be some used for cost of issuance. And then the majority of the rest, or the bulk of the funds, would go to acquisition. The bottom part of the graph is, or the picture here, is meant to show that the property, that the actual rental income is what secures the bonds. So, you know, as our tenants pay or as their subsidized rents pay, that flows through the indenture and pays the bondholders with any surplus funds of the authority, should any surplus funds be needed. And we can go to the next slide, please. And this is meant to show a timeline of kind of where we are in the process. It's not really kind of like a hard delineated set of buckets here, so some of this overlaps, but I would say we're around step 4. So the BHA has gone to the EDC. They've gone through the inducement process, so they've gone before their board for like initial approvals as well. And then they started putting together a working group, including folks to market the bonds, bond counsel, including Ice Miller, financial advisors. We've started drafting documents for approval as well. And now we're here before you as the fiscal body for approval by resolution, which is required by the Housing Authority statute. And then they'll go back before their board again next week. And then, you know, once, hopefully, the resolution moves forward and receives your upvotes, we'll go out and market the bonds, rate lock, and then proceed to closing. And there's still a lot of work left to do, but you know, we're pretty lucky in the city to have a housing authority like Bloomington's, and they've done a lot of great work so far to get to this point. So we can go to the next slide. And this is kind of driving some points that we already mentioned home a little bit more, but the bonds will be issued pursuant to the local housing authority statute 36-7-1830, and they're payable solely from project revenues and surplus funds of the BHA. They're not payable from taxes, and they're not a general obligation of the city. And issuing these bonds will have no effect on the constitutional debt limit or bank qualified limit of the city. We mentioned here that the city council, as fiscal body of the unit, is required to approve the project by resolution, and the interest is meant to be tax exempt. So the holders of the bonds will receive tax exempt interest at the federal and state level. And I think that's where we'll open it up to any questions that we can address about fiscal body approval and anything regarding the project as well.
Thank you so much. Council members, questions? Councilmember Piedmont Smith.
So $100 million, that's a lot of money. What is the timeline for repaying the bonds?
For repaying the bonds? We are looking at 8 years at the moment. And the model we have at the moment includes potentially selling the properties at the end. We don't intend to do that. As the model gets more specific, the bond payment may take longer. The one that we're utilizing at the moment is for 8 years with a contemplated sale at the end. So,
Wait, you said you might sell the properties at the end, but you don't plan to?
No.
What?
The pro forma that we have contemplates a sale at the end. We don't intend to do that. That is not our intent. We will keep these and we will redevelop them. But that'll impact how the bonds get paid back. So I don't know how long the sale is or to pay back. Or
Yeah, so I think it's a little bit longer, maybe like a 10-year wham at the moment. But we can get some more specifics regarding the pricing as we get closer in time as well. But right now, it's considered to be a 10-year term for the general revenue bonds.
So you expect to earn back $100 million in 10 years? No. How does this work? How does the math work? Sorry.
You want me to go?
So Hometown Group holds a $65 million, Hometown Group holds a $65 million Fannie Mae loan. We are working with Fannie Mae to assume that loan. So that's part of this as well. We do not intend to pay this all back. Like I said, the pro forma we're contemplating just has a land sale as part of the current model, which we will not do. And I can already see I've created more confusion. So next week I will get a more detailed response about how long it will take to pay back both the Fannie Mae and the bonds that we'll be paying back as part of this project. So.
Okay, so you'll be assuming that debt.
That is the goal, is for us to assume.
Yeah, the goal of the resolution is kind of set outside parameters. As it stands now, we've tried to build in some optionality, but the approach now, the structure is contemplating assuming about $65 million of existing mortgage debt on the properties, which would mean if that's the approach that ultimately we end up executing on, it's still subject to Fannie approval because it's existing outstanding Fannie debt, then the bond issuance is going to be far less than the $100 million. But what we didn't want to do is present a much smaller dollar amount, and then if the existing mortgage loans were then ultimately paid off, if we pivoted away from assuming the debt and paying it off, then we'd have to come back with kind of a larger bond issuance request. So as it stands now, what we're modeling is assuming the existing debt and then a smaller bond issuance amount, somewhere around, it depends on what the debt service requirements can handle, but somewhere around 32 million of a bond issuance if we go the route where the existing debt is assumed. And it's older debt, so no one can predict where interest rates are going, but we do know where interest rates have been, right? So it could be potentially lower cost of debt because it's a little bit of it was issued a few years ago, so maybe more favorable to the authority to proceed that way.
Councilmember Stussberg?
Yeah, so to follow up on that a little bit, so that $100 million is kind of like the maximum possible. And so you're asking us in terms of approval to approve the maximum potential, but really you expect the actual bond to be lower than that.
As long as we get Fannie approval and the execution goes into place where the existing debt is assumed, then it would be a much smaller bond amount.
Okay. So by the existing debt being approved, so that basically means like that you get turned over as the mortgage payer, so you don't have to pay that entire thing back at once, you just start paying those mortgages.
Right.
And so then it's like BHA still owes that money, but it's not in the form of a bond.
Right. So in another way of thinking about it is the project is assuming, 80 to 100 million of new debt, or is incurring 180 to 100 million of new debt. It's either going to be all bond financed or it's going to be partially financed by assuming the existing debt, and then the delta between that would be bond finance. So I think the existing debt's somewhere around 65 million, and maybe the purchase price, which is still perhaps being negotiated under PSA, but would be something like 62 million for the properties. 72 million for the properties, assuming so, right now, the 7 million delta would be debt financed, and the existing debt would be assumed.
Okay. And then the 9% interest rate, which also seems kind of high, is that also a maximum, and what kind of interest rate would you actually expect?
So right now, and it is, and just to reiterate, the resolution is meant to kind of set outside parameters, almost like, bumpers at a bowling alley, right? So it's meant to be kind of the outside parameters, and we wouldn't expect it to be around there. I think we're modeling currently somewhere around in between 475 and 675 on the bond piece, but it depends on pricing and a few other kind of to be finalized deal terms. Is that a fair assessment?
I appreciate that interest rate a little bit more, so I'm
Yeah,
glad that
right.
we're not actually looking at 9%. Thanks.
Yeah. And the same with the 45-year term. It's kind of an outside parameter that's allowed by statute, so we approve that, and we don't intend or expect to go there. Right now, we're modeling on the bond piece with the loan assumption somewhere around a 10-year term, and then we can report back on the remaining term of the existing loan that the Housing Authority can help gather that information prior to second reading.
Councilmember Flaherty.
Thank you. It was a helpful presentation about some of the multiple, dimensions of the rationale for this proposal. So I'm understanding the context of the revenue creation in the context of maybe eroding support from federal government. Also, the opportunity to convert some of these through LIHTC or RAD in the future makes sense to me. I think the first reason mentioned was kind of like stabilizing or helping, preserve workforce housing in the community. I guess maybe two questions related to that. Like, one is, are these properties generally, or any of them in particular, like at risk for losing that workforce housing now under existing conditions? Like, is it some window that the BHA is, or some particular need the BHA is trying to address that isn't being addressed currently with current owners? And do you anticipate the rents will stay about the same as what they are now, or are you trying to deliver more affordable rents than these properties have right now?
Okay.
Thanks.
I'll try to answer all that and let me know if I didn't. So yes, we know that at least a couple of these properties are in very poor condition. We actually conduct inspections because we have vouchers at several of these, and we've had to address many issues with the current landlord at several of these properties. We know that two, Kingston Manor and Summit Point, are at locations that would be prime for redevelopment. Given their locations, we would assume those would be demoed and redeveloped as student housing, like what you've seen around town. Our goal here in terms of preservation would be to do the needed fixes and then do a much larger rehab through the LIHTC or RAD in the 5 to 10 year range and save those properties. We project rents may go up modestly, but like it said in the introduction, we'd be targeting 100% average with a ceiling of 140% AMI, which is typical for workforce housing. And then for our RADs, once they've gone through a conversion, our RADs, the cap is 50% AMI, so we'll introduce those gradually as we're successful with those applications and are ready to do those. So did that answer most of your questions? Or?
It did,
okay.
Yeah. I do have one follow-up, if
Sure.
that's okay. with Council President.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
Thank you. Which is just, what do you think are the most significant risks of this proposal? I mean, it's a pretty significant amount of debt. Like, what could go wrong? How are you anticipating that? What are the downside risks here?
Absolutely. There is risk here. To the BHA, these are general revenue pledge bonds. What that means is anything that's already not tied up in a commitment. So anything beyond what is owed to HUD or to our investors would be at risk here. We feel like developing affordable housing, preserving affordable housing, addressing our housing shortage is a statutory responsibility of the Housing Authority. So we see this risk as worthwhile. These types of deals have been done before, mostly in larger places. So we're a little new in that we're a smaller housing authority, smaller community attempting this, but there's no reason in my mind that we should not try this. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I think it does. And it seems like I suppose renting for more if you needed to, or selling the properties would always be like there's backstops to the risk. It's not like the value of the land deteriorates entirely or something, even if revenues don't match projections. Is that part of your calculation, I guess, or analysis?
Yeah. I'll add just another piece that might help is, another risk is that we can't fill these. Some of these have very low vacancies, but we believe that CapEx will do that. We also do not have the capacity to asset manage these or property manage these, so we are going through an RFP process right now to address both of those needs. So we will be reliant on a larger property manager with more experience marketing this kind of housing, whereas we're used to working with a wait list and incredible demand for our units. That won't be the case here. So we're bringing in some other experts to help us with that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any others? Councilman Rallo? Councilman Rallo.
I had a question related to, so logistically, you're going to renovate these properties, and yet you're counting on rent. So you're going to be displacing people. Or is there, could you describe a little bit about the process of how you're going to go about making this capital investment while keeping people housed and, the returns on rent that you will require to service the debt?
So some of the renovations will not displace people. I'll give you one example. Woodland Springs has staircases that are dangerous. That is not going to displace anyone. And many of the renovations are like that. So siding, air conditioning units, where we can manage to keep people housed during those kind of renovations. I'll also add that the vacancy rate on these is quite high. So being able to renovate some, we expect renovations to take probably up to 2 years. So it's not going to be all at once. It's going to be doing pieces as we can get to them. This is something we do have experience with because we did it with our RADs and we didn't displace anyone. So there's a clear path forward for us. I can certainly get more detail about that, but.
Sorry. That's adequate. I just wondered, you seem to have experience in this. So I'm assured that you've been through it before. So that's all I've got right now. Thanks.
Councilmember Piedmont-Smith.
Okay, first of all, what is CapEx?
I'm sorry. Capital expenditures. So this would be renovation costs.
Okay, thank you. My question is about the actual language in the resolution, which is kind of legalese, but it just doesn't make logical sense to me. It's the second paragraph after the whereas clauses, where it says, resolved further, the Series 2026 bonds shall be secured by the general revenues of the authority and shall be payable from the proceeds of bonds to be issued by the authority. So how can the bond funds be used to repay the bonds? Which,
Yeah, so not in their
regular
entirety.
English,
But
this doesn't make sense.
there will likely be some bond proceeds used to fill up debt service reserve funds or capitalized interest accounts. So like when they're going through the renovations to help have a pool of money available to pay the bondholders during a certain kind of rehab or construction period. And then depending on how pricing comes in and how the bonds are marketed, there'll be debt service reserves to fill up as well. And some of that could be funded by bond proceeds. Likely a lot of that will be funded by project revenues as well. But again, it's kind of authorizing, the resolution is meant to be authorizing the outside parameters to allow for maximum flexibility when the authority goes to the market to market the bonds and to structure the deal.
Well, this sentence to me says the Series 2026 bonds shall be payable from the proceeds of the bonds, period.
Yeah, so some bond proceeds will be.
I understand.
In part, but not in total. Some bond proceeds will be used to pay future interest and to fund debt service reserve funds that shouldn't be hit, but for, should there ever be project revenue shortfall. So
I understand
in a
that, but
sense,
this says it shall be paid from the bond proceeds, period.
yeah.
So that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and in part, I think would have gone a long way there for us. So, yeah, certainly happy to make that revision on second reading, but hopefully verbal explanation helped a little bit there. But very good point. It should have been in part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councilmember Rosenbarger.
Hi, thank you. Couple questions related. First question is, how are these properties selected?
So we were approached by a developer broker who's applied to be our asset manager about this, and they've been in touch with a number of property owners in town. This was the deal that looked the most promising. So Hometown Group had contemplated selling these. I think we're especially attractive to Hometown Group because there's not many other bodies that could assume a Fannie Mae loan and do what we're doing to make this purchase happen. So it was purely through our brokers investigating what properties might be for sale. And all 5 of these are owned by the same owner.
Great, thanks. Follow-up to that is wild card a little bit, but can you speak to why the Seminary Point properties most likely could not be considered for part of this purchase and bond?
I don't know if I can speak to that, but we, on a side note, we have been part of the conversation about Seminary Point throughout, and that conversation is continuing. We have not contemplated attempting to sell bonds to purchase any other properties beyond this deal, which this deal we've been contemplating for about a year. There have been a couple other potential deals that have come up, but those both sold quickly, and this is the only one that's moving slowly enough that we could actually go through this process to potentially use bonds to purchase it. I absolutely think we would consider selling bonds to purchase other properties for the purpose of preserving or creating affordable housing. The timing of this is such that it just, this has been on our focus with the bond sale, so it's not something we wouldn't rule out.
Awesome, thank you. And I totally understand that you got to move at the, you got to find properties that are moving at the snail pace of local government, so that makes sense. And very exciting to hear that potentially Seminary Point properties could be in consideration for later. I mean, a lot of these properties, I think it's going to be great. It's adding a lot of housing units, but the Seminary Point is so wonderful because you don't need a car, unlike a lot of these properties. But thanks so much for answering. I think you're doing great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Others? Councilman Morello.
Yeah, could you just state again, so a hometown is repairing and maintaining the properties, but so could you delve a little bit deeper into why BHA is planning to assume that liability? Is it, I mean, what would happen if you did not do this? Is it just a matter of scale that that it requires this level, I suppose?
Yeah.
Or could you describe a little bit?
I think the Fannie Mae is a pretty big factor. That loan, it would not be assumable by just anyone. It may be the scale. I don't know what other offers they've had, but they have been contemplating this sale for a year, so I'm guessing they haven't had many. If you're familiar with any of these properties, I would say 2 of them are in quite good shape and will not require a lot of work. 3 of them, partly due to age and partly due to just neglect, are in very poor shape, and it could be that the initial price tag that was contemplated or that they put out for these apartment complexes was just too much for anybody to consider. That has dropped by about $10 million since we got involved and have kind of negotiated the sales price. So it could be that if they went back to the public with a lower sales price, these would sell, but like I said before, I think at least 2 of these would quickly get demoed and redeveloped as student housing.
Councilmember Strasburg.
Thank you. I saw in that resolution that and so this is kind of like a general BHA question. It says, it's in the first whereas clause, it specifically states these apartment complexes and then says that they're within the incorporated area of Bloomington or within 5 miles thereof. So I'm kind of assuming the BHA can do stuff within 5 miles of Bloomington as part of your documentation and.
I don't know if you can speak to the statute. Some of our internal language, some of our bylaws says strictly Bloomington.
Okay.
But in terms of the state statute.
Yeah, the state statute, I think, allows housing authorities in certain situations to participate in projects within that 5 miles. So to me, that's a recitation of statute and just saying we're checking the statutory box here with respect to an allowable project for the Bloomington Housing Authority.
Okay, but in terms of the actual property, those are all within city limits? Because there's a couple of them, where exactly is the border?
They are. Woodland Springs, part of Woodland Springs is in the county, so it's split.
Yeah.
And our intent would be to annex that into the city.
Okay, great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll move now to, sorry, Councilmember Pima-Smith, sorry.
I'm sorry, I'm still hung up on this language. So is there any legal risk to leaving that one paragraph where it says the Series 2026 bonds shall be secured by the general revenues of the authority and shall be payable from the proceeds of bonds to be issued? Is that, maybe I'm also asking Mr. Allen, our council attorney, is that okay to leave in there with the understanding that most of it will be paid from revenues of the BHA and not from the bond itself?
I think it's at the will of the body. I think it's okay. I also think it's okay to leave it out because, excuse me. What we're doing here is fiscal body approval. So the resolution to me isn't going to necessarily govern how the course of the project and how it's documented, but it is going to check a diligence box that we followed the Housing Authority statute and presented a resolution to the fiscal body for its approval. So I think it's okay to take it out if you're more comfortable. We could also propose some language for your approval prior to second reading. I'm assuming resolutions go for second reading, but it's also, oh, okay. So happy to workshop some language now with you then.
Mr. Allen, what do you think?
Honestly, I'd be very comfortable leaving it in. I know that we had that conversation earlier. I think the statement as a whole is meant to cover, again, the maximum parameters of the possible bond, and understanding that even if there was any situation where the underwriters were confused about how the bond proceeds were going to be used at all, to understand that this, there might be a reserve fund that's used financed by certain proceeds of the bond, but also includes that revenue piece. I think those have to be read together and not disjunctively in that particular whereas clause. So read together conjunctively, I think it's fine to leave in. I'm not concerned about it at all. Also, I think to Chris's point as well is the full parameters of the issuance are covered not only in the initiating resolution of the BHA, but also the confirmatory resolution of the BHA, which is far more specific about the bond parameters. And as we've just seen, because this is potentially going to be a placement, those parameters are going to get further narrowed down as we go. We're just doing the broad overarching approval with the maximum possible parameters. So from that standpoint, my opinion would be to try to give as much flexibility as we can at this stage if you're all comfortable with the project and the issuance, and allow that process to work itself out.
Okay, well, I won't try to do an amendment on the fly then if the legal advice is that this is sound the way it is. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Daley?
I have a quick question, but Councilmember Daley hasn't.
Councilmember Daley and then Councilmember Sussberg.
Thanks, sorry. It says here in the staff memo that was issued to us, it indicates that on May 19th, the BHA presented to the Economic Development Commission, which indicated general support for the project and bonds. So that wording, general support, leads me to think that maybe they had some concerns or reservations or just deeper questions. Can you speak to anything that might have been other than like, yes?
I didn't hear that. I think general might have just been too vague a word. If anything, I heard those members say, I heard expressed excitement, and this is a bold direction, I think were some of the words I heard. So if anybody else wants to speak to that, but
Happy to just echo that, that's what happened.
Awesome, thank you. Just wanted to clarify.
Since if I wrote the language, so I can tell you why I use the word generally, if you'd like. The reason why I use generally is just because the EDC didn't formally vote on it. Since this isn't the normal kind of RAD process where they have a role to play, this is more of an advisory. It's just to say there was no formal vote taken, but the room was very supportive of this. I'm sorry, I was inartful in that.
Great, I just wanted to hear what other bodies had in their opinions. So that's very helpful, thank you.
Thank you. Just super fast. When do you expect these purchases to happen? You said repairs would take up to 2 years, but when are we actually going to take control of the properties?
So the purchase agreement has to be executed, I believe, by November. And there is still a lot of due diligence on these properties to be done. This has been a very slow, tedious process. So I would expect those renovations to begin immediately by the end of the year. So we're hopeful that the sale will take place by November.
Okay, great, thank you.
If I can add something to that, just if this purchase falls through, we still have the ability potentially to utilize bonds to use this on other properties. So it's a tool that with your approval, we'll take forward. And if we're successful on this first purchase, it's certainly one we plan to use again, so.
Any other questions? Online, seeing none. All right. Seeing none, we're going to move to a time of public comment. Same rules as the first time if you'd like to comment. And if you're online, there's a raise hand function. It would be very helpful if you let us know. Starting with you.
Hello, council members. I'm Mary Morgan. I'm Executive Director of Heading Home of South Central Indiana, and I am a board member of the Bloomington Housing Authority. I just wanted to let you know that the board gave its full-throated support for this project. You know, it's a gutsy move. It's an area that we have not explored before. It's a need, and even though initially these will be workforce housing units, that's going to benefit our entire community. I look forward to the longer-term plan to turn these through a RAD process into more affordable units, but I think nonetheless it's needed. It's keeping these properties locally owned, which is huge. And I think we're just grateful that we have someone with Nate's experience leading this effort. I feel like it's a great opportunity for our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in council chambers would like to make a comment here?
Good evening, Council. Randy Cassidy. I'm speaking tonight as a citizen, but to understand the aspect of the workforce housing and the fact of what BHA has done with the RAD and the thing, it's an admirable thing to do. The only question I have on this particular thing, because it is a pass-through situation that BHA would be responsible, is this going to end up being a tax-exempt properties when this is done? Because my quick calculation, and while trying to workforce housing, tax revenues and such, those five properties at the present moment are churning out about $830,943 a year in property taxes. So that's the only question that I would have in regards to it, is how the replacement of that income might impact overall for the next few years in regards to it. The workforce housing is extremely needed. BHA is extremely good at managing accordingly, and under Nathan's leadership, they've done a great job. But the revenue replacement is my only question. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any others in council chambers? All right, we'll move on. Oh, well, as the third is getting ready, anybody online? All right, we'll go to online then for the moment. They should unmute you, and we're welcoming your comments.
Yeah, Kevin Keogh. Tonight's discussion, I think, highlights just how complex the $100 million proposal is. But complexity shouldn't replace standard. I don't know how much financial due diligence has been done, but I agree preserving 924 affordable housing units is a crucial goal. However, the council seems to be asked to authorize up to $100 million in bond while effectively flying blind on three standard items. The first is evaluation. I don't think I had heard any discussion tonight about, have these units been valued? And I think that would be part of having an independent appraisal or evaluation study. I haven't heard that tonight. Second, the operating pro formas. I'm just flabbergasted that there hasn't been, as part of the documentation, the pro formas. As an accountant and a CPA and an auditor, I would think that would be something we would want to look at and see, and just really understand, the math. How is it working? Because I think there's been some questions tonight and some confusion. The third is, I think you really need an independent risk assessment. I know the team presenting the deal, they're part of the transaction and they're heavily vested in that. But I think the council needs an objective third-party financial advisor to make a really good risk assessment. I think the approval without these, I believe, three basic disclosures is an oversight. It's not really oversight. It's a leap of faith. It seems like you're being asked to take a leap of faith and to basically fly blind. So again, I think it should be part of this process. You actually know what the appraisal of these assets are. I think you need multi-year operating performers, and hopefully you go out at least 10 years. And I really think you need a really good independent risk assessment. Good intentions do not pay off bonds. Sound math does. So I think you really need to look at the numbers. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Is there anybody else online? Were you going to comment, Mr. MG? Or was he just standing up earlier? Okay. Anybody else in council chambers? All right, going once. Okay, we'll come back to council members. Any comments or further questions? Councilmember Piedmont Smith.
Yeah, I'd like to follow up and ask the question about the tax exempt status of the properties once the sale goes through.
Any specific details, I'll rely on Chris, but yes, these would be tax exempt properties. That is part of what makes this a workable deal. So, do you have a more specific? Okay.
Any other questions? Please, Councilor Strasburg.
This kind of follows up a little bit on some of what Mr. Keogh was talking about with that kind of due diligence, and it's probably most for the attorneys in the room in terms of this, because these bonds aren't really being issued by the city of Bloomington, but and it's not going against our bond limits or anything like that. It's entirely the responsibility of the BHA, right? Like, why do we have to approve them doing this? Because I'm kind of working on the assumption that the BHA has done that due diligence, and that when this was presented to them with the full resolution that has all of those details in it, that is in our packet and that was referred to earlier, like that initial presentation was part of this. And that's the assumption that I've been working off of here. And so it's kind of this weird question, like, why is council involved at all? And that goes, I'm assuming, to state law, but does anybody know why that decision was made?
Your assumption is correct. It's statutory requirement, check and balance. But just to reiterate, the Housing Authority has hired CFX, which is a nationally renowned housing financial advisor who has, legally a fiduciary duty to the authority. And I know that the team is dug in quite deeply on diligence, and it's still an ongoing process, like with any other real estate transaction. They're digging in deep on their diligence, that's for sure. But yes, they have a financial advisor. But the reason that we're bringing it to your attention, other than good brother-sister governance, is because of the statutory requirement that the fiscal body of the unit approve such projects.
Mr. Allen, do you know, like, why this is part of that state statute in terms of overall? Because we also don't approve like BHA budgets or anything like that during budget time, right?
That's right. Yeah, you do hear the BHA budget. I think it's part of that kind of quasi-relationship that the city of Bloomington has. I can't tell you why the General Assembly, in their infinite wisdom, included this particular oversight, because it does mirror, though, other bonding authorities. So there are independent entities, obviously, that have bonding authority in which the city council provides some oversight. So I guess it's more of a mirror of that to make sure, just like there's a requirement in the statute that a public hearing was held. So the notice, they already published the notice in the paper, and as part of the BHA board, they had to hold a public hearing. It's more just to make sure this is given wide public attention, that the public has a chance to speak out about it, to learn about it, and learn about the parameters, and give maximum opportunity to feel like there is actual representation before it's approved.
Okay, thank you.
I have a quick follow-up question to a handful of both the comments and some things that other council members said. And I think I asked a similar question when we heard at the EDC, but just sort of wrapping maybe some of this together. In terms of the risk, and Councilmember Flaherty aptly spoke about the backstops that are available. I mean, one being selling of the properties, but because we're putting BHA funds as the assurance for the bond, are in the worst case scenario, can there be downstream effects on other BHA operating procedures? And then the question that Mr. Keogh brought up, I mean, are we we fairly certain of if our main backstop is the ability to sell the property, do we have any concerns about the liquidity of that property or our ability to sell it quickly? I should rather say that buildings aren't liquid, right? But our ability to sell it quickly should, things go south, given the sort of market that those properties are already showing right now. And last question is, are we able to segregate the loan in a way where you could sell off one property, or do they have to operate as a unit?
I'll speak to the first part, and then I'll ask Chris to speak to the loan. So that was a lot. Let me back up and make sure I've got all that. So yes, general revenues are pledged as part of the assurance of these bonds. I mentioned this before, but we have multiple entities that own the RADs, that own our future LIHTC project, that own various projects. And in those investor partially owned properties, there's a waterfall. So only the portion that reaches us is available as a pledge. So that means we have to meet the DCR that's required by the project before we even get to the funds that might be pledged for this purpose. Obviously, there are other funds that we have, so Summit Hill and some funds that HUD has no jurisdiction over that would be pledged. Things that HUD has responsibility for, we also cannot pledge in this deal. So in terms of the greater risk, part of our due diligence will be appraising these properties, so I think we'll get a better sense as we dive in how sellable these are if we had to sell one quickly to save ourselves in a bad situation, but can't speak to that quite yet. So in terms of the loan and whether that's can be divided.
Yeah, particularly the Fannie Mae loan, because the way we were talking about it is that one of the reasons people didn't want to assume this property we're thinking is because of the existence of that fairly large loan.
Yeah, and I'll check with Colliers and the diligence team on that specific question because I don't want to misstate the answer to that question of whether it's a mortgage loan secured by all properties or whether the properties could be separated out. But it is an existing, Fannie mortgage-backed security mortgage loan securing all of them, but I'll have to follow up to determine whether the properties could be broken apart and how easily that could be done.
Mm-hmm. Okay, excellent, thank you. Forgot I was chairing. Any other questions? Councilmember Flaherty, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, just a few more follow-ups. So, assuming this is authorized, the Bloomington Housing Authority Board would still have to make additional approvals subsequent to this, right?
Correct. We have our final resolution going to next Tuesday's BHA board meeting at 8:30.
Got it. So you just mentioned appraisals of the properties, that it sounded like those have not been done, but you would do them. Is that correct? And so would that not precede the board's decision then?
So what the board is approving is the limit of bonds that we could potentially sell. My understanding is these bonds still have to be sold to somebody. So there will be a process of convincing them that BHA is a good bet and that these properties are a good purchase. That's a long process. What you all are approving and what BHA is approving is what that max limit of bonds might be. So
that's helpful. I guess to further clarify, before purchase of the properties themselves, would those be approved by the board later down the line as a separate decision then? Like this is about bond authorization, purchase of the properties themselves would come later? Is that a safe assumption?
Yes, a purchase of this magnitude would require a resolution of the board. Correct.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. That answers my questions. Thank you.
There was one other part. So we are relying on our broker developer and that partnership to do much of the due diligence. Once we have a property manager on board, they will also participate in some of that, so.
And one final question from me, because we're sort of setting the upward bounds of this, do you have an internal thought on, particular things that may make this not work? Do you guys already know, I mean, we say like 9%, for example, as an interest rate, but do you already internally say, look, we can't go beyond 8, or, is there certain economics that don't make this work? In other words, what I'm implying by the question is us passing this today, approving this today, we're not setting you on a necessary path of going and purchasing this. We're just saying, generally speaking, here's some things that we were concerned about. We want you to keep in mind while you go about this process. But yeah, so just talk us through a little bit about sort of the continued thought process, the continued due diligence, and the continued decision-making processes that will happen hereafter.
Right. I mean, just like any property purchase, there's a long list of due diligence. So I don't know if I can speak to specifics about a certain interest rate making a deal not work. But when we get to a final pro forma, if it doesn't cash flow, obviously there's no path forward. And if we're not generating the kind of revenue that we expected, there's no path forward. I mean, that's one of the conditions for this. Happy to share that as those come available, but don't have specifics on that at the moment. So, yeah.
Council members, any final comments? Or motions, for that matter. Councilmember Statsberg, then Piedmont Smith, then Rallo.
I have a final comment, I suppose we can call it. As was said, this is kind of a big move, kind of bold, kind of gutsy. The word gutsy, I think, was used out there. And I think it's also kind of exciting to be going forth in this manner. And I guess I specifically want to call out Kingston Manor because that is over in District 3, which is my district. I live less than a mile actually from that complex. I knocked doors in that complex. I've been in the common spaces. A couple people let me into their units, and it definitely needs a lot of improvements. But the rents over there are very affordable, and that's something that has kept people there. It's also an amazing location. Yeah. Speaking to this idea of the return on investment of tearing it down and rebuilding some much more luxurious, expensive apartments. It's on a bus line. It's adjacent to the College Mall area, which has a lot of shopping. It has a lot of grocery and food options. It really is nicely placed. It's in a great school district. There are a lot of families that live in that complex, and I'm really pleased that it's on this list that will and I'm hoping that this all will go through in terms of all those numbers working out so that the folks who live there can continue to live in a place where they can afford their rent, but their hallways won't be musty and they won't have some of those health and safety concerns that currently exist in that complex. So I'm really glad that you guys are moving forth boldly in this manner, and I hope that it works out in really positive ways for Bloomington. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Piedmont-Smith.
Yes, I agree with my colleague. I think this is a bold move and a positive direction for BHA. I understand these are not at the affordability level of the current BHA properties, but they are an essential part of our housing ecosystem, and they are at levels that are much lower than the new student housing complexes that we see popping up. So I think it is very important to preserve these and to improve the management of them through this rehabilitation that you're planning to invest in. I was focusing on Basswood because that's in my district. And, when I was campaigning, people would be like, oh, you're not going to Basswood, are you? You're not going there alone, are you? I felt perfectly safe there, but it is run down. It does need investment. And it does provide very very badly needed housing for people who don't have a lot of money. So I think this, Mr. Cassidy had an important point about the 831,000 estimated property tax revenues from these properties that government would be losing. But I think, you know, our portion of that, the city's portion of that, I would consider a good investment in keeping this housing. So thank you.
Councilman Rallo.
I think it's been covered pretty well. I have nothing more to add, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Councilmember Ruff, anything? I'll just add that, you know, I think, I'm sorry, Councilmember, the whole room got excited that you raised your hand, so Councilmember Flaherty.
Any order is fine with me. Yeah, I just wanted to briefly follow up. I support this and appreciate the creative thinking and the efforts to do something different. I think there's some advantages to it. I think it is a little strange, our approval. We're not really the primary fiscal oversight body for BHA. I see our role here essentially as approving at a relatively high level conceptually, which is, I think, what we're hopefully doing here today. And it was good to confirm and clarify the multiple steps to follow from the board, which does have a more direct fiscal oversight role of the BHA. First, in just authorizing the bonds for this purpose, and then second, in approving large-scale purchases to follow, which is probably the stage at which we would have some of the additional due diligence steps for their review that Mr. Kia was asking about. So appreciated those questions and also appreciated the discussion it afforded afterwards. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Just echoing the comments, I love the fact that this is bold. My assessment of why it's bold, though, is maybe different. I think that this is bold simply because we haven't done it before, you know, which I hope that as a city generally we can start adopting more of, like, let's do stuff that we haven't done before. But I think just pragmatically it's shrewd. There's an opportunity to invest and provide value to the people who live here. And you know, I think that it's the type of philosophy that we should be adopting for all of the type of goals that we're trying to achieve here. And so I really applaud yes, the willingness to do something new, and excited for what that can deliver. So needless to say, I'm very supportive of this. So with that being said, if there's no other comments, will the clerk kindly read the roll? Call the roll, sorry.
All the things. Councilmember Ruff?
Yes.
Rosenbarger?
Yes.
Flaherty?
Yeah.
Stossberg?
Yes.
Piedmont Smith?
Yes.
Asari?
Yes.
Daley?
Yes.
Rallo?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
I move that ordinance 2026-12 be read by title and synopsis only.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All right. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Rosenbarger?
Yes.
Flaherty?
Yes.
Stossberg?
Yes.
Piedmont Smith?
Yes.
Asari?
Yes.
Daley?
Yes.
Rallo?
Yes.
Ruff?
Yes.
Thank you.
Oh, will the clerk please read?
Ordinance 2026-12 to amend Title 15 of the Bloomington Municipal Code entitled Vehicles and Traffic to seasonally provide a carless Kirkwood. Council sponsors Daley and Rosenbarger. The synopsis is as follows. This ordinance seeks to codify streets and alleys in Bloomington that disallow vehicular traffic. Specifically, this ordinance codifies the seasonal carless schedule of specific blocks of Kirkwood Avenue. With this ordinance, businesses and residents can expect a permanent seasonal carless Kirkwood, allowing businesses the predictability to invest in outdoor infrastructure for guests. The city administration has provided valuable operational feedback in its 2026 memorandum identifying important challenges regarding infrastructure, sanitation, public safety, and accessibility that naturally arise as temporary programs transition toward permanent city fixtures. With that, this ordinance aims to provide the necessary legal and budgetary certainty for the city to move beyond incomplete solutions and invest in more permanent infrastructure such as more ADA-compliant features and high-quality seating recommended by staff.
I move that ordinance 2026-12 be adopted.
Second.
Will the clerk please call the roll?
No.
Oh,
No.
sorry. All right. Yay. Would somebody like to say something? Councilmember Rosenbarger.
I'll start. Thank you. Okay, so I do want to start by saying Councilmember Daley and I are aware that this ordinance does not have enough votes to override the mayor's veto. I find that pretty unfortunate for the city of Bloomington residents and visitors. While we still have an ordinance in our books and our code that Kirkwood will be open to people and closed to cars April 2027, this ordinance sought to make that a more predictable occurrence, and we still have a lot on the book, so it'll be interesting what we hear then. I'll talk more about that later. What I do want to say is this ordinance that tweaked really the original ordinance was really awesome to work on. It's been a really long time, I think, at least since I on city council have done something where people have been so excited and come to help with so many ideas and so many stories, either about what they've experienced other places or what they've experienced on Kirkwood. And it just really was an awesome experience to see Bloomington residents so enthused and so excited about something as neat as closing 5 blocks in our city to cars. I made some bullet points that go a little deeper in that. You know, we've had, I would say, a lot of public input. This today is our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th meeting this year on the topic, and we have been meeting on this topic for 5 years, and those meetings have been fairly predictable because we have always had to pass the outdoor dining program ordinance starting in COVID. So some fun people we heard from: parents with a child with autism who only spends time on Kirkwood when there aren't cars, people who bike to work to IU who choose Kirkwood instead of the 7 line when it doesn't have cars on it, people who use mobility devices who feel safer and take more time shopping on streets without cars. We just simply and in general heard from so many people who either experience Kirkwood car-free as families or friends, or experience other streets internationally car-free, and just like absolutely up their quality of time spent there. We also heard from a church worried about parking, which is something we can solve. And we heard from advocates of people with disabilities worried about people's access. I say advocates there because we also heard from many people with disabilities who prefer a street without cars. From the outdoor dining ordinance and this one, we worked with the Council for Community Accessibility, and we would and will continue to do so. Car-free Kirkwood, this ordinance specifically, was unanimously recommended by the Bloomington Commission on Sustainability and Resilience, and unanimously positively recommended by the Transportation Commission. It was a 5-4 vote here, and of course the 2025 ordinance was a 9-0 vote. I think most people have talked, council members at least have talked about their vote changes, and I do want to acknowledge, of course, opinions change and years change, so maybe to the best of our ability we don't really go through that again. Public input. So I came across a chart from Safety Week that I did send to all of council members. This was something that really had, well, it had never been shared with City Council. And so during Safety Week, Planning and Transportation staff tabled on Kirkwood for 4 days. This was in August during Welcome Week for IU. So students were back or were coming back, parents and visitors were here, more families were here because the school system was back in session and people were back at the grind after vacation.
I would say, you know, we have a lot of data on this. We've had a lot of meetings. The mayor had a listening session. And to me, this is the very best data that we have, because this is people, a random selection of people experiencing a space and commenting on that space. I don't know why you guys are nodding down there. I can't hear you. If we want to put this up, that would be good. And while that's happening, I will just say the fun fact of this is it was collected in August 2025, and it was available and not used when ESD made the decision in 2026 to keep Kirkwood open to cars. That's its own problem and can be talked about later. So in this survey, or in this tabling of 271 people, 90% of those who participated either they got 2 little puffballs to put into jars any way they chose. And so 90% of those puffballs went into jars that either wanted Kirkwood permanently closed to cars and open to people, or seasonally closed to cars and open to people. 3%, I guess, didn't say anything, which then I guess they just filled out their name. And then the other 10% weren't in favor of a closure. Boop-a-doo. You know, I'm just kind of like taking the liberty, because I'm here to talk about other cool stuff. So I was looking up and speaking with the person in Indiana who runs the Creating Places program, because we hear a lot about how this is done in other cities and other states, but it can't be done here. We've got state code, you know, we've got state legislation that's shrinking our budgets and everything like that. And I think in part that's why this Indiana program is so successful. It's crowdfunding. It doesn't have to use any municipal dollars. It's $100,000, and cities across Indiana, some with Republican mayors and Republican city councils, are doing awesome things to activate spaces for people. So I looked up great things like Spark in Indianapolis now closes Monument Circle seasonally. It has, this past year, 61,000 people who went there. And of course, if you know Indianapolis, Monument Circle is a big space where cars really come from all different directions. So it's a pretty high task, I think, to get that coordinated. Terre Haute revitalized streets with bike rack seating, gateway signage. This took place under a Republican mayor. Hey, do we say Monticello or Monticello here? I forget. Monticello, I think. I don't know. Connected its river to the downtown, similar to Kirkwood. They were crowdfunding $50,000, and the public donated $101,000, which is amazing. And I think it's just pointing to the fact that people will show up and people want this and people will spend their own money on it. We have had some projects here in Bloomington. Captain Janeway on the Beeline was the first project. The Southeast YMCA also did a new playground with a Creating Places grant. Most recently, Cicada Cinema did this exact Creating Places grant. They were looking to raise $50,000. They raised $62,000 and then got a matching grant of $50,000 from the state of Indiana. I point to that because that grant closed July 15th. And so it really, I think, hits home that people want places to gather, and there is, again, money in this community to help create those places. I speak to these projects and this grant because, one, many council members are worried about a budget, and two, many council members say it takes a lot of money to pull this off. And these are all projects that are, most of them are well under $100,000. Most of them are on the $20,000 to $30,000 range. And then the staff for this program did also price out the 5 blocks of Kirkwood as being a $30,000 to $40,000 project to activate it. So I think it's important to, you know, not necessarily make believe things, but like give experts a call and figure it out. That's all I want to say right now about it. Again, I understand we don't have the votes. I do want to speak, maybe potentially have a longer final comment if we're not timing those. So I would like to ask for that and use my time from 78 other meetings tonight. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Rosenbarger. Other comments, if any, or questions or anything else you'd like to do at this moment? I also will take any motions. Councilmember Piedmont Smith.
So that was a lot from Councilmember Rosenbarger. Thank you. A lot to process. I'm interested in these crowdfunding. I couldn't really follow. So there's crowdfunding that has been used in Indiana cities that the state matches for activation of public space. Is that what you were talking about?
Yeah, so IHCDA, the Indiana Housing and Community Development Authority, has up to $100,000, well, up to $50,000 matching grant for nonprofits or municipalities in the state of Indiana to activate spaces. It's been used for everything, right? Murals, public bathrooms, restoring a train car on the South Monon Freedom Trail, buying flower pots to go on street lamps and watering them. A removable screen for a street that gets used for showing movies in a summer. It's the website is patronicity.com/creating places, and it's really awesome. Today I scrolled through every single project and got really excited and obviously jealous. Oh, so it's $50,000 match, right? So the municipality or the nonprofit raises that money. You cannot donate to your own cause. So if the city were to apply for this, also it's a very low barrier application. It's just like a Kickstarter page that you fill out. The city could not fund it, but for example, the chamber could, or like DBI could be the sponsor, and the city then, if it wanted, could put in $10,000 or something like that.
Anything else? Okay, I'll go to public comment. If anyone would like to comment on our reconsideration of Ordinance 2026-12. Take it away.
Paul Rousseau, just the heck, what the heck, I'm here. I really appreciated the comments by Councilmember Rosenbarger, and this is not the end. This issue will come back, and this is just the beginning. We might not have the money to do it the way we want to do it, which I think is the reason for some people reconsidering, but there will be another day. And I really appreciated the conversations that the mayor initiated. That was a very good meeting, an hour-and-a-half meeting a few days before her veto. A lot of good input from people. So we need more of that, and I think she's on board with getting more input about that. So thanks, everybody involved.
Any other people would like to make public comment at this time? Is there anyone online? All right, to the folks online, you should be able to unmute at this point. Are they unmuted?
Hello?
Hello. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the council, Steve Volan. I just wanted to speak briefly as a member of the Transportation Commission. I hate to correct Councilmember Rosenbarger, but the vote was not unanimous. It was 5-1 in favor. So I just wanted to mention that correction. I also wanted to call attention to the resolution that I brought in 2023 on a downtown circulator, the idea of a permanently running bus circulating around downtown. I mention it now because I did the math on it, and if we had corrected parking meter rates the way they should be corrected, at least $1 million a year would have been generated at for the purpose of that circulator. The recent study from Walker Parking, which will be presented to you in a couple of weeks, but is still going through Transportation Commission, does call for adjustment of rates both up and down, but any change in rates is going to generate significant revenue, far more than would be needed to do any kind of activation on Kirkwood. If the council is concerned about raising money, the money basically has always been there in the form of street meters. And that money should always be devoted to either transportation-related issues, preferably public transit, or to fixing or improving infrastructure within the district where the money is generated. At least that's the philosophy of this Transportation Commission member. So if money is an object, I would urge council to rethink their concern. You're going to be getting a package of parking meter rate reform in the next few months. There's almost no question about it. It's just a matter of when and what the structure of that reform will be. But I wouldn't use that as a reason to begin planning for a more car-free Kirkwood. Thank you for the time, and appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Next person online. Are they still there? Do you have a moniker or something I can?
It's the person with the screen name Buff Brown.
Oh. Buff, Mr. Brown, Mr. Lawrence Brown, are you there?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yay! Sorry, that took me a while here. All right, my name is Buff Brown. I have been a longtime advocate for bike, ped, and transit options for decades in Bloomington, founder of a former group called BTOP, Bloomington Transportation Options for People, that operated for 10 years with relatively good success from 2004 to 2014. I have also been a professional transportation planner for 25 years, now retired. I now live in Portland, Oregon for family reasons. I have now lived and advocated in 5 cities and know how councils and mayor relationships work and how they fail as well. I have been following this issue for years and have enjoyed the seasonal closure of Kirkwood and many visits back to Bloomington. I have a few points to make. Number 1, this will work, and the earlier you start, the better. So vote yes. Use the 2027 planning process that you have planned to plan for its growth, not its rebirth. For a council to make this happen, this is exactly how to do it. This is the horse and not the cart. All data shows that this is what your community wanted. A public survey at the Safety Week last year, a stakeholder business survey shows the majority of respondents want it as well. The 11-0 vote of the Sustainability Commission, the 5-1 vote by the Transportation Commission, and most of all, a 5-4 vote by the council. Everything shows the community wants this, just not the mayor and some vocal stakeholders. I worry about the following. 1, the vote is significantly about the power and authority of the legislative branch and the executive branch. And I think voting no abrogates power from the council. 2, I hope that the council members who I have worked with for years, whom I call the old guard, Ruff, Rollo, and Piedmont Smith, I feel are becoming the establishment Democrats, those who tend to hold up the status quo rather than take risks. So my conclusion, I am asking you all to believe that your younger council people are here to make a difference, to create new things and make them work at a risk, admittedly, for their lives and their children's better lives. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else? Okay. Other person who is online, we welcome your comments. You should be able to speak now.
Hello?
Hello, we can hear you.
We can hear you. Okay. This is Carol Canfield, I'm a lifelong resident of Bloomington. And this is very
Well, one second. We could hear you, and now it sounds a little bit muffled. We'll give you back your time, but are you able to adjust your microphone by chance?
Can you hear me at all?
It's a little better, but you sound a little bit distant.
Council members Rupp and Rao have my correspondence this week after our meeting. If that's the thing, we have that, agreed, and that would suffice.
Thank you. And if it's possible to write out what you said, that would also help, because we saw a transcription, couldn't exactly hear it, but it would be helpful just for confirmation if you could type that into the chat, if that's possible, and we'll very happily read that out loud. Thank you. Okay, anybody else in chambers? All right. Pending the last comment here, then we'll come back to council comment. Have they written it? They haven't? Okay, well, if they do, you can, we'll stop and we'll read it. Okay, fantastic. Back to council members. Councilmember Daley.
Thank you very much. Yep, as co-sponsor of this ordinance, I just wanted to quickly jump in and make my comment. It has been a wild process working on this with Councilmember Rosenbarger. You know, after the vote 6 weeks ago, you know, she and I have had multiple conversations and some really great meetings deciding how we were going to move forward, especially once the mayor did veto it. And we did come to an agreement early on that we were not going to work to overturn the veto. We were going to press pause, and we were going to continue working on it throughout the fall and the winter, and you know, get that greater input and have more conversations and continue to keep developing it. And so we had decided that was going to be the plan. But then over the past 6 weeks, we have had a lot of outreach from a lot of invested community members, business owners. We've had just so much positive reinforcement from members of the community who wanted us to continue moving with this. You know, it is on the agenda for tonight. This is just part of our standard procedural. I didn't realize that it was actually coming up on the agenda for tonight, so I was surprised when I saw it. But, you know, all that being said, you know, one more point. We did talk about like the budgeting and the money. There was money in, I don't think Councilmember Rosenbarger said this, is that there was money in the budget for this year to put toward Kirkwood. And so we still have that money budgeted. So there is still money set aside that we can be putting toward the adjustments and the changes that we want to see to help make this more of how we envision a pedestrianized Kirkwood. So we do have some of that money now that we can be thinking about. So I just wanted to put that out there as well. But, you know, I don't expect that this is necessarily going to go anywhere tonight, but we are going to continue to keep working on this. And because it, of course, is an ordinance that I co-sponsored, I will be voting in favor of this tonight because I worked hard on this. And I think a lot of people really do want to see this come forward too. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Flaherty.
Thank you. I appreciate that we're having the conversation and that we're taking a vote on the veto. I know the sponsors have suggested that based on their conversations with council members, they don't expect the veto to be overridden. tonight. I think that's a disappointing outcome, in my opinion, if that's the case. But Councilmember Rosenberger also noted that we've had council members change their minds about this. Perhaps they will change their minds again. Who knows? I do want to cover some things. First, just as I'll always keep saying with this about messaging, this is not a street closure. It is a street conversion. It is a temporary closure to motor vehicles and a corresponding opening to pedestrians, bicyclists, wheelchair users, pets, scooter users, skateboarders, shoppers, diners, sporting event celebrators, etc. It is a public space conversion in probably the ideal place in Bloomington to do that. It makes so much sense. I think that's why there's such broad public buy-in for it. We're blessed with such a unique connector from the downtown and the courthouse square to Kirkwood. It's like the perfect context for this. We could have done it probably a half a century ago, and no mayor or council since has been able to figure this out. I'm sure plenty of people have thought about it. Maybe it'll be ours. Maybe it'll be 20 years from now. Who knows? I do think and hold out hope that it will happen eventually when we have people with the right political will and vision for this, even if that's not right now. I think it's been noted, this has had broad policy support from some of the bodies that we ask for their input on their area of expertise, in particular here, sustainability and transportation. It's been noted the Commission on Sustainability and Resilience unanimously supported this with the resolution, and that the Transportation Commission, while had some questions and some healthy discussion, did ultimately support the proposal with a vote of 5-1. It was Bloomington Transit Director Connell who was the no vote. I think there was a recognition that the proposed staff findings that this didn't align with city goals were incorrect in the commission's opinions. There was, we were all aligned on that. Also, just noting the climate action plan says that we are supposed to determine appropriate locations for car-free pedestrian zones in high-density areas. This is the appropriate location. We're supposed to establish an implementation based on the Kirkwood pilot project observations. And again, I think that's what this sets the policy direction to do. Yes, there's work that would come would come following this, but it takes the commitment for us to then do that, because otherwise every conversation about it is plagued by uncertainty. Will we, won't we? Is it going to happen next year, et cetera? Without policy certainty, we can't take the next steps around budgeting, around design, around making sure it is accessible and safe and equitable. And even the little, single issues that are unique to individual stakeholders, like First Christian Church that emailed us earlier this week, concerned most significantly about their 6 angled parking spaces in the alley between Washington and Lincoln, north of Kirkwood. That's a valid concern. They have limited parking. I get it. I've walked that space. It seems to me like 90-degree pull-in parking would be possible in that alley, even if tight. I asked them if they have talked to planning and transportation staff or explored that possibility. I haven't heard back yet. But the point more broadly is that these problems are solvable. Are there accessibility challenges potentially? Yes. Can we solve them? Also, yes. Are there accessibility challenges with car streets and safety challenges? Yes. And those are hard to solve. I am concerned more broadly about some comments I've heard, relatively limited, but over time, about that essentially conflate direct motor vehicle access with accessibility for people with disabilities. Those are not the same thing. And to the extent that we're working against pedestrian safety in the name of accessibility, but really you're just talking about car access, I think we're really missing the picture. I think this does happen. I mean, but more broadly, people with disabilities actually have the most to gain in a situation like this. About a third of people don't drive. That's about a 10% of adults who don't drive, but among the disability community, that is dramatically higher. I've seen numbers cited around 60% of that population. And car-heavy cities and places are more dangerous to disabled people. They are, based on extensive research and also expertise from accessibility advocates. So there's been studies that show vehicle pedestrian deaths among wheelchair users is 36% higher than the overall population. Our own data show in our Safe Streets for All action plan that Kirkwood Avenue from Walnut Street to India Avenue is part of the high entry network for vulnerable road users. It is a dangerous place to be a pedestrian or a wheelchair user or a bicyclist. That's the data. Those are the facts. The National League of Cities also notes that pedestrian zones in cities result in a more accessible, efficient, and cleaner city for all residents. That's their view. Also, there's a fair amount from disability advocates about this. Anna Ziverts is a disability advocate and author of the book When Driving is Not an Option. She is a low vision person and a non-driver, and also a leader in mobility equity. She's worked with the National Safety Council's Mobility Safety Advisory Group and has lamented that accessibility sometimes becomes a political football in the discussion of pedestrian zones, and how unfortunate that is. But the car-free zones, when designed properly with accessibility in mind, provide far greater autonomy for disabled non-drivers than traditional vehicle-only spaces do. So again, I think if we really prioritize accessibility and collaboration here, we can get that right. I have high confidence in that. I think former Councilmember Volin, Transportation Commission Chair Volin, made some great points about parking meter revenues in addition to budgeted funding that we have for this that Councilmember Daley noted. The last point I did want to reiterate is the broad public support for this. I think there's also some like sample bias selection, kind of like self-selection bias pieces. I would imagine that the folks the mayor hears from are people who are opposed because they know that she is opposed. So they know that she is the receptive audience for their opposition. That's probably, I wasn't able to attend the listening session. I was out of town, but my guess is that it was, mostly that kind of perspective there. She'd already made the decision earlier in the year, unilaterally, not to go through with the conversion this year, even though it was, passed by ordinance last year by this council. So she'd already made the decision. In my mind, the veto was a given, but appreciate that she did have a listening session prior to doing it. But again, she'd already made the decision earlier in the year. The best data we have is the best data we now have, the best data that the mayor's administration had but didn't share with us previously was from pop-up events on Kirkwood, asking people how they interact. This is, by the way, a good analog was Cascades, which we never did convert to a non-car park space. But similarly, we asked people when they interacted with it, and asked hundreds of people during that trial what they preferred. And actually, the strong majority was in favor of converting that space. Obviously, we never did it. Similarly here, we asked people interacting with Kirkwood, not to show up to a meeting like this, but we're just, what do you think? And that 90% of the people wanted some type of conversion of Kirkwood to a non-car space in favor of being a public space for people. That's pretty wild. Those are very impressive numbers. Only 7% favored no closure to cars at all. So that's quite striking. Again, I think it's the best data we have on this. Also among council members, probably 90% of the emails we've received have been in support and in favor of this. It's hard to get perfect data, but if we really wanted to, we probably could through hiring like a survey firm or something. Lastly, I know there's been some discussion about we can continue the conversation from here. Sure, we've kind of been down this path. Previously, I brought a UDO resolution a couple of years ago. The mayor made some calls, got folks to vote no on introduction. That was disappointing. Notionally, we were supposed to have a lot of collaboration that followed from that. Planning and transportation staff did conduct some sessions. We had a deliberation session of the council. It actually wasn't all that collaborative. Ultimately, there wasn't really any action. So I brought back that resolution, the same resolution, and we passed it. So the track record there isn't very good. Again, I think the mayor's made it very clear that she is opposed to this. So I'm not putting a lot of faith in, collaboration to follow. I think it's up to the city council to lead here. The one other recent experience there was with the snow removal on sidewalks, which, by the way, is a significant accessibility issue and a pedestrian safety issue. I led a deliberation session on that, invited all of the relevant department heads from city staff, and the mayor told them not to come because they had been spending too much time on the Hopewell PUD process. So Tim Street showed up anyway, bless him, and thank you. But the others did not because that was the order from above. So again, not a great track record on collaboration on things related to pedestrian safety, accessibility, transportation sustainability. So it's up to us to lead. I hope we do. If we don't, hopefully the next term, the council will or a mayor will. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any others? Well, I'll make my quick plea for those of you still considering in hopes that, 2 people will join us. Just a handful of things. First, I'd like to add to the list that Councilmember Rosenbarger started off with in terms of the people that we've heard from. And one additional stakeholder that I think is relevant to add here are those who spoke against closing Kirkwood, but for this reason. They made arguments like, it would be awesome if, but ... you all won't, right? Wouldn't it be cool if we had that? We would love to live in a city that, but we're not that city. And I think that it's important for us to realize that that in itself is an analysis of what people are thinking of their local government. That they don't think that we can deliver or follow through with our own vision and our own plan. And I'd like to echo what Councilmember Flaherty has been saying throughout this process and so many others. This is a thing that's written fairly clearly in a bunch of city plans, and again, that we've got a lot of momentum around. And every single time we stop short of doing something along these lines, and that does not breed confidence. It doesn't breed confidence in those who would think to move here. Doesn't breed confidence in those who would invest, doesn't breed confidence in the local business community, and that has downstream effects on other things that we do. The second thing that I'd like to note is we should remember why this was before us in the first place. In collaboration, we brought forth a piece of legislation that, again, within the whereas clauses and within our debate and within the requests that we received from significant stakeholders, our constituents, was that we wanted to give some certainty, at least for a period of time, to downtown business. That's what was requested. And then going into season 2 of what was supposed to be the full-throated, properly backed version of this, where people supposedly had already invested 2 days before we were to continue with that, we're told that actually we're not going to do it this year. This echoes a lot of other things where I think it's important for us to assert the fact that we too are elected officials who represent the city of Bloomington. We too receive feedback. We too have a responsibility to those who, to our constituents. And I think that it's not fair that we would pass an ordinance that could immediately be just turned in another direction, and often not with appropriate data points as well. I think that we also need to note that there's this ongoing theme where we're talking about things like economic development, and one of the areas that is throughout most arguments for economic development in the city is that we must attract a different demographic, or at least cultivate a particular demographic to be in our city. And that includes making sure that we have more workforce, that we have more young people. And realistically, I have advocated for this. I'm not saying that this is not a zero-sum question. You don't do that at the expense of people who are retirees. I think that we have to make the city great for everybody who lives here. But the point here is that I do think, as it relates to economic development, that people within that target demographic are remarkably excited about what a city looks like with a closed Kirkwood. Students are excited about that. Alums are excited about that. And so that does tie to a lot of other things that we're trying to do. Finally, I'll say that a lot of problems were brought up, and I think that we give, we have a culture here of, if we can state a problem, and I guess I just throw a problem out there, and so because I've said it, there it is, it's a problem. But all problems are opportunities for innovation. Every single thing that was brought up, whether it's, well, what are we going to do about, that's the conversation that we should be having. And we don't have that conversation until somebody brings forth some type of a piece of legislation. We also brought up, and I think this is a really valid argument, which it's like, look, at the end of the day, why are we investing in Kirkwood instead of? I think that's a very strong argument. It's one that, you know, it resonates a lot with me. But the reality is that we're now no closer to doing that investment either. And so I'm concerned with the fact that we're just going to cycle around having deliberation about what we might do. We're paying some consultants to come and tell us what we already know about the street. And that path dependency matters an awful lot. And so to me, what was really exciting about putting forth this resolution, this ordinance, is that it addresses those issues of council's place in governance, yes, but it also gives a clear mark. Now we can amend, we can go back to it and say, look, actually, as we started to do this design, we realized some things that we hadn't thought about, but it gives us a direction to go towards instead of just going round and round the mountain and not coming to any type of real solution. So that's why I would urge you, I'd beg you, colleagues, please join us, because again, if this isn't working, we have a whole year to design this right, to fund this right, to put all of the efforts into making this work, and if not, then we can take it back, but not doing anything, I don't think gets us any closer to the Bloomington that we're trying to become. So with that, I'll pass to anybody else. Councilmember Stossberg.
Thank you. I want to start by saying I appreciate the research Councilmember Rosenberger did on the grants and those options and the input from Mr. Bolin regarding using parking meter fees as a way to fund this. And I just appreciate those thoughts. And while the ultimate cost of activation and redesign is a piece of my initial vote, at this point, I have kind of a slightly different primary motivation driving it. I agree with nearly everything that Councilmember Flaherty and Asari just said about the challenges with the mayor and the general importance of the power of the legislative body. And that's like the most, that's the thing that tempts me most right now to change my vote, honestly, is it's not about the issue. It's about saying, like, the majority of us, like, thought this thing, like, figure it out, right? But what is still going to end up being a no vote for me this evening is really feeling like the success of this closure depends on this collaboration between council and the administration and city departments. And without that buy-in from the administration and city departments, it won't be successful. And it's really clear that we don't have that buy-in right now. And I appreciate that sentiment that, like, we have to force that to make it happen. I'm not sure that that's the approach I'm just not on board with that approach at this point. And maybe it's because I'm still relatively new here and I'm still, I'm going to give this chance, or maybe it's because I have just a more, like, ingrained sense of I would rather have this collaborative consensus sort of thing as opposed to this adversarial debate. Because despite how it might look sometimes, I would much rather have a nice, like collaborative conversation that results in consensus than have to debate somebody, like, in my, like, soul. Okay, but I think that we can still give it time. I don't think that this is an issue that is going to die. I said to somebody who emailed me over the last couple of days, like, if this ordinance looked slightly different, then maybe I would support it. If it wasn't 5 blocks, if it was only 1 block, if we, start with, like, a smaller bite of the apple to figure out how to make this truly successful in 1 block and then move it on to more block. And those, I think, are maybe some of the conversations that Councilmember Asari was just referring to in this idea. And I do think that those can still happen, that those still need to happen, even without this ordinance forcing that 2027 hand, because ultimately we do still have what otherwise was on the books last year in terms of saying, hey, barring some real, whatever thing, these should be closed. And that is something to bring up again. So I am gonna continue the same vote that I did last time, and if anybody is interested, I spoke extensively in the June meeting about that, and I also, like, have some of those same concerns still moving forward in terms of what it would mean to make this a vibrant, successful pedestrian space. and like the real like redesign and activation kind of potential. And if anybody's interested in hearing those, I wrote out those comments, and I would be happy to send them to you and just let me know. I do want to thank everybody who's emailed and had conversations with me about this over the last several weeks. I read them all, I swear, and I consider them. I did go to that meeting that the mayor had, and there was a diverse set of folks there advocating for different things, and the vision is really beautiful. The vision is really, really beautiful, and creating that vision on Kirkwood or somewhere would be really beneficial to Bloomington, and hopefully we can make that happen. Thanks.
Councilmember Rallo.
Yeah, very good comments, and I want to say that I really appreciate the sponsors for bringing the ordinance forward because we need to have this discussion and debate. So this has been very helpful. And I supported it last time because I wanted this to be taken seriously. It has merit. I am aware of many streets that have been closed that have failed. Some have succeeded. But I don't see it succeeding, especially in such an iconic, important public space as Kirkwood, without community buy-in. Got to have people, all sorts of people, come and have their say and envision what could be. So, was it optimal last summer when it was closed? I don't think so. I visited it several times. I found it rather trashed. It wasn't an optimal place to be. I mean, we can close the street, sure, but we can't administrate the operation of the space. So we need a collaborative approach, as Councilmember Strasburg says. So I would like to, and to tag as a corollary, I think that requires collaboration. I don't see an adversarial act of overriding a veto as helpful in moving this forward. I didn't like the adversarial relationship in Hopewell. We finally hammered out I think, a better product in the end. So it takes two, obviously. I do recognize that the mayor issued a letter stating that she wanted the council administration to engage in a process, she said, to envision what would be the best outcome for Kirkwood with community input. I take her at her word that that's what she intends to do. We have the means to do it in deliberation sessions here, and we can have multiple deliberation sessions to that end. I would say I've detected we have divided opinions in the community. I don't think anybody can say, yes, this is a no-brainer. The majority support this. I don't see it. In fact, I see a lot of merchants very nervous about what the outcome might be, and yes, maybe being conservative, small c conservative, and just wanting to maintain what they can predict. So, and I don't presume to know how to run those businesses, so I take it very seriously. So since we have divided opinions, I think it's incumbent on us to have those deliberation sessions, bring in all sorts of different considerations about the businesses, the churches, the library, accessibility concerns, public safety, cleanliness, the design of the street, how we can optimize it, and of course there's going to be trade-offs, there's going to be opportunity costs and trade-offs to consider, and the expense involved, which is part of it too. Regarding the poll, yes, I think that there is, as I said, this really deserves merit. I mean, it could be an amazing space closed off, and it deserves to be done appropriately and right. And I don't want to just barrel through and say, we're going to close it, and you figure it out. I think we need to meet. I think that we, with the administration, during Safety Week, 271 respondents, yes, they responded at pop-up events during Welcome Week. So that's probably a pretty selective and biased poll. Yeah, I take it as information, but I can't say that's the community, opinion. So we really need to drill down on that. So I'm not going to attempt to override the vote. I'm going to actually reverse my vote this evening, but I'm going to go into this process expecting that we're going to have a better Kirkwood than we have now going forward, and I'm open to all sorts of different input on how we can maximize pedestrian use of that space.
Thank you, Councilmember Ruff. Councilmember Ruff, please.
Yeah, speaking as one of the old farts, no, old guards.
That's what he said.
Along with Councilmember Piedmont Smith, who probably also rode her bike down here today, and one of the old guard who, for the however many thousandths of times, I rode my bike down to City Hall again tonight, and I'll ride home again tonight, maybe on Kirkwood. I feel like I agree with a lot of what, I agree with some of what almost everyone said tonight, on both sides of this. But I particularly agree with a lot of what Councilman Rallo said. We don't know where the community is at on this, and in the enthusiasm of a lot of the supporters with this vision for this, I just feel like in that zeal and enthusiasm, which I appreciate and I understand, if this is something you really aspire to and really think is going to be such a game-changing quality of life amenity in Bloomington, I understand that excitement, but I just feel a lot of it is exaggerated. And like when we first all voted for the seasonal closure, like last year when we first did, it was a 9-0 vote or whoever, it was unanimous, who all was here. It's in part because since then, I have heard from a lot of businesses and residents in opposition that caused me to step back and reevaluate. I sort of assumed there was just large, wide-scale enthusiasm for the idea initially. And I found that that's, in my experience over the past several months, that's not the case. You can't say that clearly. I can't say there's dominant opposition either, right? But I think the burden is on demonstration that it's very favored to make a change like this, to rush forward, to overturn, to go against and not be collaborative with the administration, to take the step to do that. And we're not, I'm not there. The arguments have been made. I just want to make a few anecdotal points. Again, I have been riding my bike downtown in Bloomington for 55 years, literally. Used to ride to McCullough School as an elementary school kid. I raised my 2 kids here, riding up and down Kirkwood, coming to the farmer's market on Saturday mornings. So, as young kids, I have experience here. One of the notes we got tonight from one of the supporters literally says, "I love having the Beeline, which means I can walk from my apartment to Food Truck Fridays at Switchyard Park." Well, yeah, it makes it a nice one, but you could walk there without the Beeline. It's this, again, I just feel it's an exaggerated enthusiasm that leads to statements that I don't think are helping the careful consideration and weighing in all the costs. And the sustainability argument. I've been thinking long and hard about this and trying to research it a little bit. I'm not sure I get or understand how this proposal automatically reduces the carbon footprint of Bloomington and creates and is more sustainable. I mean, if people are riding their bikes or walking to Kirkwood because it's safe, well, they're walking from all where they live and they're going where there's not pedestrian closed roads or roads that are closed to cars. Traffic's moving over to 4th Street, where the restaurants are. People are walking all over 4th Street. You're going to have more traffic on closed Kirkwood. They're going to go to 7th Street, 6th Street. You know, the assumption, I'm trying to think about what is it that automatically makes this a big sustainability game changer. And I'm just not sure. I'm just not sure I get it. When I drive, I said I was going to give some anecdotes. You know, when I ride my bike down Kirkwood during the closed periods, I actually feel it's less safe. I'm dodging people that are unpredictably moving all over the street if I'm riding my bike down there. Scooters, skateboarders, people walking, unpredictable. Cars are much more predictable. When I ride down Kirkwood when they're cars, I feel less safe and more likely that I'm going to hurt somebody else when it is closed. So there's just all these assumptions that I'm skeptical of in a lot of ways. And one of my most honored new urbanist planners and thinkers that I personally have known was not in favor of this and told me that he watched Louisville in their closed area be hurt, the downtown businesses and the liveliness of the area be hurt by this, by a similar type of project. So I'm more than willing to look at this and work at it, and seasonal closure or certainly event closures for big major events, and I'm totally open to that. And maybe it is a good thing, but the way to do it is take our time, be collaborative with administration, because as has been pointed out, they control the mechanisms, the machinery of of implementing this and making it work and making it good. You know, so we've got to play ball together on this. And so I'm completely open to it, visiting the idea. I don't mean to be poo-pooing it, but I did want to counter with some of my own personal experience some of the assumptions and enthusiasm that this is just automatically just a fantastic thing that's just going to rain down primarily benefits to the community. So thanks for indulging me for a few minutes. Appreciate it.
Well, a lot of good points have been brought up by members of the public and by my colleagues. I spent the last 3 weeks in Germany, where my parents are from, and where I spent a lot of time as a child, and the pedestrian zones there are fabulous. Unless you try to bike through them, then you have to dismount because they are filled with people. It's a little different in the United States, where cities were built for cars, including our city largely. Kirkwood is one of the widest streets we have. It's much wider than it needs to be for cars. Anyway, so I can appreciate the vibrancy of a pedestrian zone, and I would love to see that on Kirkwood. So I think that most people can agree on that. I appreciated what Councilmember Volan said. Councilmember, see, it's old habits. Parking Commissioner Volan about using increased parking meter fees to implement the activation of a pedestrian zone on Kirkwood. That is one of the several reasons why I think we should take our time with this. If we can put through parking meter rate increases and tie the increased revenues to Kirkwood activation, I think that would be a great way to move forward on this. I'm sorry, my thoughts are a little jumbled because there's so many things to think about here. We are facing reduced revenues as are all local governments in the state of Indiana, thanks to the actions of the Indiana General Assembly, the increased property tax deductions, and the mess of what has become our local income tax structure. We're going to have to cut something. We have grandiose visions. We want to do this and that and revitalize South Walnut, is what I said a month ago. There are a lot of good ways to spend limited taxpayer dollars. Something's got to give. We can't keep adding more programs. We're going to struggle to keep up with funding the programs and projects we already have. So this is a reality. I try to be bold. I praised BHA, we did tonight, for being bold and heading in a new direction. But I also need to be a steward of taxpayer dollars and recognize our limits in that respect. And that is that is a reason why I voted no on this and why I will not be changing my vote. I think that the suggestions from Councilmember Rosenbarger, those are all great things that we can pursue. I mean, if there is a crowdfunding mechanism, but this is going to take ongoing financial commitment, ongoing staffing, storage of the shade structures. It's not, of course, the first time we invest in permanent structures, that'll be the biggest investment, but there will be ongoing costs. So even a crowdfunding thing is not going to really carry us forward. As far as what the public wants, I agree with Councilmember Ruff and Councilmember Rallo, is we don't really know. I mean, we got probably biased input at the listening session that the mayor held because it was, 48-hour advance notice on a Tuesday evening in the summer. And I think a lot of her friends were there. But I also think we got the input on the planning and transportation safety survey. That's biased too, because you're asking people who are enjoying a car-free Kirkwood whether they would like a car-free Kirkwood. Well, they're going to say yes. They're out there enjoying it right now. You're not asking the people who maybe didn't come because they couldn't drive or whatever other reasons. So I'm sorry I'm a little disjointed here, but the last thing I want to say is that I agree that a collaborative approach with the administration and with the community, with the Council on Community Accessibility, with perhaps a consultant who has worked with other cities that have thriving pedestrian zones, I think that's the way to go. And I do share the hesitation that some in the community and maybe also on this body have as far as collaboration with this mayoral administration, because that administration has fallen short on collaborating on other things. I mean, they ask us to approve Hopewell, with a rubber stamp, which was not particularly collaborative. But I still think, and I talked with the mayor briefly yesterday on the phone, I think that collaboration is possible and should be the route that we pursue. So that's it for me. Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Rosenbarger, you're going to redeem your time. So go for it.
Hey, everybody, grab a glass of wine or tea and settle in. Okay, it was a little long, and then you get all those comments, 2 comments. All right. So Councilmember Asari and Flaherty went first, and wow, my comments were incredible. I want to say thank you, Council Members Asari and Flaherty. I want to live in a city where you two lead, because I teared up, I got excited, it made sense. You say, let's do it, let's try it, let's do our goals, let's do our plans. Like, seriously, I just appreciate your comments so much. And I think so many made sense that a lot of council members talked about this as some kind of potentially like dead end or rushed start, when we have talked about this a lot as being the start. That I have a lot of notes about the mayor's failure to collaborate with us, and I will bring those up in a minute, but like, it is true that we have not seen this mayor collaborate with us. And this was brought because the 2025 ordinance was unilaterally decided by the mayor to not open Kirkwood, right? That was a little messed up the way I said it. The point of this was just to encourage and pressure the mayor to work with this city council. I have a lot of confidence in my colleagues that the 9 of us can and do work really well together. And I think in a way, some of us had a rough start, but I like truly value all of you and your opinions and your perspective and your experiences and your skills and your talents. And I would love to also say that about a mayor who works with their city council, but like so far this term, 2.5 years in, like I can't say that. And it does make me sad. That's not really a professional feeling, but it does make me sad, because hearing from council members Asari and Flaherty, I really was, you know, again, excited that heck yeah, we can do this. Like, it's true. And I think one council member mentioned, we put the start date as April 2027, and that maybe if things were a little different, they would vote for it. We can amend this forever. It's our code to amend. We can shorten the months, we can shorten the streets, we can decide it actually needs to wait until 2028 to start. We can do that. Without this ordinance, we cannot do that. I think it's true that the momentum is now, and I want to believe that we can keep the momentum. But a lot of times when we alienate the public, or, you know, like, don't listen, they stop showing up. I used to speak, right, as a public commenter, and after a while I felt insane. Like, how many times can I come and talk about the 4th Street parking garage, right? Like, that was nuts. That was nuts. I think there were 3 main fears about this. There was money, and I think we showed that this can be funded for free, and it can actually, you know, be activated space for free in Bloomington. And maybe that looks like something a council member said, maybe it's not all the blocks. Accessibility can also be tackled. That was a fear. We've got awesome folks in our community to talk to. We've got websites that are useful, as Councilmember Flaherty said. And the fear that I think is the toughest to get by is the fear that the mayor won't play along. And some people call it buy-in, I think, which is potentially nicer, or collaboration. But it's really hard that we have one person who is in charge, who, you know, well, is an equal body of government, that does not want this. If this wasn't vetoed, we would be doing it. So if we had a 6 vote, we would be doing this. And we've done it for years already. And, you know, some council members talked about last year not being successful. People down there apparently thought it was. People down there said they would like to see this. So if there's trash, that's also an easy problem. We have public works. There was a project, a Creating Places project, that just bought extra trash cans. Again, I looked at all of them. So I really do, you know, I think most of you are pretty set, but with the first 2 final comments, I just want to say I really was like, can we just do this? And can we trust each other that we will amend this ordinance because we need to? And that we've had and we've asked the mayor to collaborate with us on multiple occasions. Councilmember Flaherty talked about snow removal, where she disallowed staff from coming to that deliberation session. This ordinance was inspired by a lack of collaboration. Other council members mentioned that. I have a list, but I don't want to go through all of them. I think the main one is that the mayor brought a PUD, and we weren't engaged with that from the start, which is like, okay, like, you can do that. But the mayor and her staff threatened to sue us for 2 weeks because we wanted to impose reasonable conditions on the PUD. That isn't even a lack of collaboration. That is obstructing city council from doing its job. So I guess kudos to those who are still hoping that the mayor will collaborate. I think that we can still follow the same timeline. Councilmember Rallo, I think, talked about deliberation sessions this year. Let's do it, right? Like, if you all don't want to pass this, we don't have to. There is the ordinance that is in existence that says April 2027. Of course, like, we won't be a part of that decision, right? And okay, another council member talked about the Kirkwood puffballs. Okay. Also, everybody got 2 puffballs, so if they really used 2, it was 130 whatever people. Okay, so I want to correct that as well as the Transportation Commission. We have no scientific data on this. We have no scientific data for anything in the city of Bloomington. I worked at an evaluation social enterprise, and it costs a lot of money to hire that, and it takes a lot of time to do that. Here's a little bit about what the internet says about how often and how long we study things. Studies stall controversial decisions, they pacify those opposed, they defer accountability, they maintain the status quo, and they add costs to make projects financially unfeasible. I am understanding this is a council that also wants to study things, and if anyone here would like to stop studying things and start doing, I would like to partner with you and collaborate on some ordinances. Someone mentioned 4th Street in Louisville. I am, was born a Southern Belle. I'm from there. I've been there many times. The longest time I spent on 4th Street was a Congress for New Urbanism conference because they booked up the hotels on 4th Street as an example of something cool cities do. And I think many council members are new urbanists, especially the old guard. Someone talked about this being very adversarial. It doesn't have to be, and it's not us making it. It's the mayor. We're not up here saying anything crazy or harsh, right? We're up here being like, let's go. Like, I guess it takes 2 to tango, but I think like we could also just be talked to like regular people sometimes. Someone else used the word exaggerated. Someone talked about I wouldn't want to bike there. This really isn't for biking. We do have streets and bike lanes for that. This is social interaction, and most likely this would be a dismount zone like the sidewalks of Kirkwood and the square. Kirkwood was platted literally 100 years ago before the automobile. So the width of it took pedestrians, it was about pedestrians and horses and stuff. So it wasn't planned for cars. I think a council member talked about it being really wide. Businesses being opposed, the ESD packet from 2026 had 54 businesses surveyed, 26 strongly supported or supported, 20 opposed or strongly opposed, 8 were neutral, which means like they could be on either side, right? I mean, you can add it to either side, but that means 32 are like, yay, okay. I think that's about it. I think it is a bummer. I mostly hope this council, yes votes, no votes, really mean what you say, that you're really interested in this and you want to do more work on it. This has happened before. Last term, we tried to make it legal to sleep in parks, and council members opposed, said they were going to do something, and you can see what's been done there. I guess that's it. Thanks for entertaining me and letting me do this. Not that maybe you really had a choice, but I am disappointed, I would say, in my colleagues, and I would love to think more about a council that leads and has a vision than what we are now. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Now, if there's no opposed, I'd like to ask the clerk to call the roll, please. All right. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Flaherty?
Yes.
Strasburg?
No.
Piedmont Smith?
No.
Asari?
Yes.
Daly?
Yes.
Rallo?
No.
Ooh, sorry. Ruff?
No.
Rosenbarger?
Yes.
Thank you very much. That motion does not carry. All right, we are now at the final period of additional public comment. If you did not come in at the first one and would like to make a comment on something that is not on the agenda, now is your time to do that. Is there anybody in chambers? Would you like to make it because we... Okay, anybody online? All right, move on to questions of council schedule. Any important, yes, please.
I'll just say that we have a fiscal committee meeting on Friday at 8:30 in the morning. And as a reminder, usually those are an hour. This one's going to be an hour and a half because Reedy is coming to talk about financial planning stuff.
Excellent.
So thank you.
Excellent.
The Committee on Council Processes will meet tomorrow at 4 o'clock till 5:30 in the Allison Conference Room.
Excellent, thank you. All right, with that, we are adjourned. Thank you. Good night.